So they're talking about the comedian who made jokes about Puerto Rico while Tony's on stage on the other screen. So Tony's on stage at the mothership while this guy's talking about what Tony did on CNN. And they're going over like the Puerto Rican population and how they voted.
Oh, it's
Just
so
pull
funny.
it up because it's fucking
that's
crazy.
so great.
We were watching it. Metzger was back there. The whole green room was packed. We were having the best fucking time. There should have been a camera on the green room last night. It would have been the greatest reality show of all time. Brian Simpson and Tony Hinchcliffe and Hassan. Everybody's cracking jokes. Metzger. Look at this.
Oh, dude, that's so great. That's the...
Metzger. I just said after that, we're in a simulation, for sure.
Yeah,
I
it does
said,
feel
like,
that
we're
way.
it's on the video. I said, we're in a simulation. It's 100%.
Well, it's just like... It is just unbelievable, man. Like, the false reality that they were trying to present while you're watching what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And seeing that it's like there was just an enormous shift, like culturally, from say even 2016 to now. And I thought one of the big indicators to me, I was talking about this a bunch on my show over the last couple weeks, since the Garden event, whatever that was, a week and a half ago. And dude, there were no protesters.
This episode of the Joe Rogan Experience is brought to you by Call of Duty. You know, when a new Call of Duty drops, everyone's trying to find a way to squeeze in those extra hours of gameplay. I get it. Life is busy, but sometimes you just...
Hey, Joe, it's the Replacer. Yeah, no, you. Hey, I'm gonna take it from here so you can enjoy some Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Great. Now listen up, folks. Life can be chaotic, but you shouldn't have to miss out on the latest Call of Duty just because you've got, I don't know, responsibilities. That's where I come in. I will handle the boring stuff like work, chores, even podcast ads. So you can dive right into the fight. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is out October 25th. So dive in because I've got your back. Remember, I replace you play. It's not
Black... No.
That to me was so wild.
It was all... I was there. He was like
Not a terrible
chanting
chant.
It was terrible. He was the biggest cuck ever.
The hell
was
is
like,
this?
No, yes,
The
it's
super
horrible.
cuck. The guy was a super cuck. He was one of those guys where you're just like,
course.
look at you. I wanted to follow him around. I'm like, you're amazing. You're a gift. Keep talking. Just let me listen to you.
Like, what's your life like after this?
Two black guys started walking towards his way. He started chanting Black Lives Matter. As soon as he saw the black guys, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. I was like, this is amazing. I stuck right behind him. Me and Cam Haynes, and I think Tony was there too. And we were just, this is crazy. This is crazy.
But they don't seem to have that in the same way.
It's
like
all
the
bullshit.
shock troops aren't there for them anymore.
It's bullshit. First of all, back then they didn't know what he was going to do and what he did economically. Chamath has the best way of explaining it. He said it was the right message, it was the wrong messenger. But if you look at the actual actions and were they good for the economy, were they good for the United States? They were. But it's Donald Trump as the messenger was so polarizing that people lost what's really going on just based on who this guy is, who has, like, just like Tony Hinchcliffe is an insult comic, Donald Trump's entire career is, you're fired, you're a loser, Rosie O'Donnell's a loser. Like, that's his whole shtick. And you expect him to course correct once he gets into office? No, he's not. That's not who he is. You elected that guy. But along with that, now you get RFK Jr., you get Tulsi Gabbard, you get Elon Musk, and you get J.D. Vance. You get brilliant people who aren't ideologically captured. Two of them who used to be Democrats.
422 or something?
One of them that probably knows more about environmental polluting and about the problems with pharmaceutical drug companies and health and the consequences of all sorts of pesticides and herbicides, ingredients in your food that should be banned that aren't banned in another country. You got that guy in there now. And we got a real chance to make real change. This is like one of the first times ever where there's a real chance to make real tangible change that's going to be for the good of everybody. He's got to unite.
Here we go.
He's got to not attack the left and not attack everybody. Let them all talk their shit but unite. Now it's time to unite everybody.
Well, 100%. And then there's even more guys. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yes, Vivek.
David Sachs. I mean, he's got some really smart guys who
Vivek
are
is a
very
wizard.
successful.
Yes.
Who are really Vivek's incredible. Which is excellent and totally brilliant and so right about so many of the major issues.
Yes.
What?
And look, I mean, Donald Trump now, he has a real mandate, which is like, this is kind of what's crazy. This isn't 2016 where, you know, he lost by several million votes in the popular vote, but won the counties that were important and just by the skin of his teeth got in. This is like, I mean, the last I looked, he was up by over 5 million in the popular vote.
Yeah, 5 million in the popular vote. And what was it when I went to bed? It was 312.
Yeah.
He had 312 electoral college votes.
Yeah, with still, I think, a few states, Arizona, I think hasn't, you know, finished yet, and so it might even rack up higher than that. But the mandate is like very specific. It's like the basic policies of like, okay, immigration control. Can't just have an open border with no control of who comes into our country. A desire to get out of stupid foreign wars.
Yes.
You know, and obviously improve the economy, deal with
Why
inflation, things like that. But he's got a mandate to do that right now, and he's got some great people around him. Listen, I was rooting for him as hard as anyone except Tony Hinchcliffe last night. But I will say now, I think now till January 20th, the pressure should be on Trump to do better on the appointments than he did last time. He's got a lot of better people around him than he ever had in 2016 or 2020, but he was floating out Mike Pompeo as the Secretary of Defense, and he did have Mike Pompeo speak at his final campaign event. And to be clear, Mike Pompeo is Liz Cheney's pick for Defense Secretary. It's Hillary Clinton's pick for Defense Secretary. And so much of this will be lost if he puts that guy in there. He needs to keep all of the Lindsey Grahams and the Mike Pompeos and all of these guys away from his administration. Bring in the non-interventionists, man. No one wants to fight these stupid wars anymore. And that's what you ran on and won on.
I want Lindsey Graham to start a podcast.
That I'd be fine with.
We got to get those minerals. There's some expensive minerals over there in Ukraine.
Oh my God.
Tim Dillon was doing an impression of him yesterday. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Dude, I don't even like. Maybe I should. No, he deserves it. But did you ever see the thing when he was running for president, where he was talking about?
He ran for president.
Lindsey Graham ran for president.
That's amazing.
In 2016.
Imagine.
And
the
remember,
hubris.
I think Trump gave his phone number out. Something
No,
like that.
did he really?
Yeah. You don't remember that?
No.
It was like because he was like attacking Donald Trump for probably not being an awful war hawk or something like that, and Donald Trump like said something about how he used to call him and ask for money, you know, when he was running for campaign, and then he just gave his phone number out. It's just the best. He made a senator change his phone number. It was just so great.
That's like a Chael Sonnen move.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It's so funny.
Amazing. But he said Lindsey Graham was asked about being the first single president.
Yeah, never married, no
and
kids.
he goes, there might be a bunch of different first ladies if I was in there.
Right.
You're like,
Yeah, sure, buddy. First of all, that's the last thing you say if you're a man and you're heterosexual. You say, I'm trying to find a good woman.
Yeah, really.
I'm trying to just find one good woman that I can grow with and that I
Oh
love
my
with all
God.
my heart. Just one good woman. I know that she's out there.
Always.
That's
Yeah.
what you say.
Yeah, you don't.
Might be a bunch of first ladies. I'm gonna get divorced, married, and divorced, and married, and keep on scooping up them minerals in the Ukraine. I gotta give those minerals to the Russians. We're just walking around with women's panties on and shit and high heels. I'm the president.
I mean, listen, I wouldn't.
I'm the first lady too. I'm gonna wear her clothes.
I typically wouldn't go after someone for that, but when you're a war hawk, all is fair. But he's got to keep those people away from him, man. And that really was his failure in his first term. And look, I do understand him saying, I don't know, he was an outsider. He had never lived in Washington D.C. He didn't know all these people, but he's had a lot of time. This is 8 years later, and he's got a great core of people around him, and those are the people to take advice from. It's like, Mr. President,
Well, they're on
if you're
it.
listeing,
They're on it right now.
Well, talk to Rand Paul.
Yeah.
Rand
Yes.
Paul will tell you who to put in those positions. Talk to Thomas Massey. I just saw he floated out Thomas Massey for I can't remember what position it was. That's great. Put those guys in there. These are the America First guys,
Yeah.
okay? And it's not Mike Pompeo. It's not the war machine, dude. And also, you know, look, his rhetoric was so great on Ukraine through the election. And when he had the courage to just say, like, no, I want the dying to stop. That was one of the best moments of the entire campaign. But his rhetoric on Israel has been very bad. And the other thing that you can't get around is that, like, listen, you can love Israel all you want to, and you can pledge to help defend them or whatever. But no, I'm okay. But Netanyahu is John McCain.
Right.
That's who he is. I mean, he's Mike Pompeo. He's Liz Cheney or Nikki Haley. He's the guy who came over and testified in 2002 before a congressional hearing and advocated that we overthrow Saddam Hussein, and also advocated that we go have a regime change war in Iran, which he still wants to this day. He advocated we had the regime change in Libya, in Syria. I mean, he's John McCain. That's not America First. That's not, you know what I mean? That's not this, we're not fighting stupid wars anymore. So love Israel all you want to, but we're not with Bibi Netanyahu. That's something else. That's the opposite of America First.
Yeah, a lot can get done here, man.
Yeah, I think so.
I think he can listen to those people. He has 4 amazing people around, you know, that really have experience. Like especially Tulsi, Congresswoman for 8 years. RFK Jr. knows it inside and out. You've got Vance, who's brilliant. You've got Vivek, who's brilliant. You got 4 incredible people with him.
Yeah,
Bro,
and
run.
He can.
Oh my
I think
God.
he can get through this in a different way than he did in 2016.
I think there's real possibilities for it, and I think that's a huge component of it. The team that he's got around him, and I would also put Tucker Carlson
Yes.
in that camp too, because I think he is very influential
Yeah,
on
for
his
sure.
thinking. I think in many ways he's kind of
Although
you know,
he does think demons made nuclear bombs.
And look, 50-50 shot, he's right about that. I'm not saying but when it comes to policy, I'm saying he's very spot on that.
I love the guy. Don't get me wrong.
No, me too. And who
He's
knows?
a little bit obsessed with demons. He
He
said
d-
a demon attacked him. Did you see that?
Yeah, I s-
Scratched him up.
I did see that, and I wasn't sure. When I was watching it, I was like, "Is this like a Halloween thing that
Jamie,
he's doing?"
why are you laughing? That's so rude. He's a victim of demons.
That sounds like a fun thing that could. I don't know what happened.
That's the thing.
Why
Like
was he asleep?
demons never really get you. You know, they're scary. Like ghosts, they never steal you.
Yeah, it's true.
Neither do aliens. They bring you back. They always bring you back.
It's like,
They borrow you for a little bit. They freak you out.
do you think like demons are bummed about that? Like they're like, "Did you kill anyone today?" And they're like, "We can only really scratch people."
Tucker thinks aliens are demons.
Yeah, I know.
Aliens are angels and demons. He thinks it's like this idea that they come from outer space is stupid. He said he thinks they've been here all along. This
Yeah.
is like legit scientists that entertain this.
Yeah, I'm not convinced of that, but I do think he's really. I think he's great on war and immigration.
He is. He's a brilliant guy.
But I do think another huge component of why Trump's got such an opportunity right now is because, like, you see it where, like I was saying, the protesters aren't there anymore. There's
Right.
a whole lot of really interesting reasons I think for why that is. But also, and I was getting in an argument on Twitter the other day with Michael Tracy, who I do like and respect very much. But I was basically saying that I think this is going to be a death blow for the corporate media if Donald Trump wins again. And this is almost the best thing about him winning again. And he was saying, which is a reasonable argument, but I disagree with him. But he was saying, well, no, Dave. I mean, look, last time he was in for 4 years, that was the best thing that ever happened to CNN and MSNBC. And they got a big ratings boost when he was in. But I don't think that's going to work again.
I don't think it's
And-
going to work either.
Well, the thing is that so much of that ratings boost was completely driven by the Russiagate nonsense.
Right.
And what they were telling you at the time was that they had the biggest scandal in the history of the United States of America. Like, you can't overstate how big that story is. I mean, they were telling
it
you...
was true.
Yeah, right, if it wasn't all completely made up. But they're reporting that a hostile foreign power has overturned our election, and the sitting president of the United States of America is in on it. He
And
is
that he's a
involved in a
puppet.
conspiracy with a hostile foreign government.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest scandal in the history of America. And they, for anybody who wasn't aware at the time of how fake and evil the entire system is, they were like, well, look, they got a special prosecutor on the president. There must be something there. And hey, I just heard the chair of the House Intelligence Committee tell me he's
Let's go,
seen the
Salah.
evidence and that he's guilty of this. And you had the former CIA director, John Brennan, saying that Trump and his family are going to be hauled off in handcuffs on television once Mueller's investigation concludes. And so for the regular person, especially for the regular person who really hated Donald Trump, it was pretty easy to get sucked into that. But after that was exposed for being a giant fake, and then the big one is COVID. I
Yeah,
just
but
don't
let's
think they can
pause.
recover.
Let's pause here. No repercussions.
Yeah.
You want to talk about misinformation? We have to censor social media because of misinformation.
Right.
You guys spread misinformation to the biggest news organization, the biggest news audience in the world.
Yeah.
And you did it for 3 years.
Yeah.
You did it for 3 years, and then when it turned out that it wasn't true, you never apologized.
And didn't just turn out it wasn't true, but turned out it was actually
Funded by Clinton.
Well, it started
Steele
as
dossier.
opposition research,
Yeah.
and then the intelligence agencies jumped on that and decided, knowing that it was all bullshit, decided to use it to frame the sitting president of the United States of America of treason. And listen, a few episodes back, one time we went real deep into this, but that claim this is just a fact. They lied on the FISA court application to spy on Carter Page, who was a low-level advisor for Donald Trump, just an excuse to spy on Trump's campaign. And they lied to the FISA court. They omitted the fact that the CIA had already told them that Carter Page wasn't a spy and that he was working with them and that he was one of their good guys. As the FBI went to the CIA and they were like, we have information that says that the Russians approached Carter Page. And the CIA said, yeah, we know. He came and told us immediately because he's working with us. And then what they put on the FISA application is they said, we believe that the Russians approached him, and the CIA confirmed that was true.
Whoa.
So which is
So that's
technically true. It's a lie
technically
by
true, but
omission.
You're omitting
Yes.
the fact that he went straight to them to tell them.
Exactly. So that was, by the way, the only guy who actually got charged was the FBI guy who submitted that application. But so
Well, that's good.
yeah, but look, when you said there were no ramifications, right? You're right in the sense of like legally,
no,
or
I
people
mean
getting fired,
the news
or
media.
yes. But I'm saying this is the ramification. The ramification is that they're not going to be able to pull it off again,
Right.
and the ramification is that look, they did everything they could to tell you this was a Nazi. This was the end of democracy.
Yeah.
He incited an insurrection, and the American people said, we already get that you're full of shit.
They cried wolf.
Yeah,
They
too many
cried wolf.
times.
Way too many times. Way too many times. The Joy Reid stuff was working for Trump. It was working for Trump. When she's calling him a right-wing dictator, comparing him to Mussolini and Stalin. And then when Oprah said that if Trump wins, you may never be able to vote again. That
I mean,
is
it's just so
the
ridiculous.
craziest thing when you go back and watch him on her show where she was encouraging him to be president.
Yeah.
You ever see that?
Yep. I saw it, and then I saw when you played it fairly recently.
Hey, Oprah.
Yeah.
What changed?
Yeah, that's right. Well, here's what changed.
The
All of a sudden,
narrative.
well, he became the guy who wasn't just funding a lot of politicians and being like a famous guy, and he became the guy who was calling all of them out and threatening to drain the swamp. And that's really was his crime, is that he threatened the DC power establishment.
But it's crazy how many rich and famous people stepped in line to help them take him out.
Yep.
Like
Well-
so many famous, influential people. And I give a pass to Cardi B. I give a
Sure, yeah,
pass.
yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I don't think Amber Rose knows what Trump's real policies are. You know what I'm saying? I
Yes.
give a pass to some celebrities that come out. But then when you have some of them that are making videos, all the Avengers get together, like, hey, are you trying to get me to hate superhero movies? You trying to show me your real fucking weird personalities and get me to hate superhero movies? Why are you doing that? If I was running the Avengers, I'd be like, hey guys, cut the shit. Do you think one fucking person is gonna vote for Kamala Harris because they saw that Iron Man wants them to vote for Kamala Harris? Are you fucking crazy?
Well, it's so. Look, man. I mean, did they think that one Puerto Rican's vote was going to be flipped because of a joke that Tony made?
By the way, Puerto Ricans are known for being great insult comics.
Yeah.
Like Luis Gomez, great insult comic.
Yep.
The fucking Freddie Prinze Jr. was a great comic. Puerto Rico has a history of great comedy. They could talk some
Yeah.
shit. If you grew up in New York at all, you know Puerto Ricans can talk a lot of shit. And
Lewis is one of the best shit talkers I've ever met. Also, garbage.
But it's
So
also,
Tony
it's
had a point.
like Italians.
Yeah.
And I'm Italian. Italians and Puerto Ricans have a lot in common, that we talk a lot of shit to each other, so we don't get insulted that much by jokes. It's not the same thing.
Right.
Like, it's very hard to insult an Italian and have it stick.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. You
Yeah.
can call him a Guido, like, yeah, I'm a Guido. You can call him a greaseball. No one cares. You no one, go back to your country. No one's been there in fucking generations.
It's also my wife is Italian, and all my in-laws, her whole family is Italian, and it is like when you have a dinner, it's just everyone yells.
They're animals.
Like everything's a yell.
They're the Romans.
Like I'll literally my brother-in-law, who I love, is a great guy, super smart, but he will, if he's agreeing with you in a conversation and you were like in the next room, you would be like, is he about to fight his brother-in-law? Like, what's going on in there? No, he's just agreeing with what I'm saying, but he's screaming it at me, you know? But it is a thing where they're very thick-skinned.
Very.
They're not like fragile people. It's one of my favorite things about them. Puerto Ricans are
some of
the same
best,
way.
Also, look at Puerto Rico. Some of the best boxers of all time came out of Puerto Rico. It's one fucking island. You got Felix Trinidad.
Yep.
You got Gomez, Wilfredo Gomez. You got incredible fighters came out of this one place. You have a fucking tough population, man.
Yeah.
It's not I mean, I'm sure there was a few people that were pissed off at that joke, but the reality is one of the things that helped Tony is that joke was based about Tony's concern for the environment. Tony is
Yeah.
obsessed with recycling. He's like, recycling's bullshit. It all goes in a landfill. I'm going to put it in the blue bin. It all goes in the landfill. So Tony was obsessed with the Pacific Garbage Patch, and then he got obsessed with Puerto Rico because they don't have any room. So their landfills are just overflowing with garbage. They literally have a giant garbage problem. So he came up with a joke based around that. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
I was texting with him after it, and I thought it was so great. I mean, I thought even the bit that he did on Israel Palestine was so funny. He ripped both sides,
Yeah.
and then he did. By the way, same with the Puerto Rico thing. There was an underlying really good point to it, which is always like the best comedy when you're just being funny, but at the same time you're like, ow, and he did kind of nail that too, where he was just like, why are we funding wars that have been going on forever? Like,
Right.
figure it out, guys.
Yeah.
And then he just got a great rip on Muslims, a great rip on Jews, and so just the way they
Also,
picked out Puerto Ricans
he's going
too.
on in the morning. There's no opening act. No one knows there's going to be comedy.
Yeah, the most difficult setup.
And there's no one on before him other than a prayer. They do a prayer. They were singing prayers and songs. And then the music stops, and Tony goes on flat to a bunch of people in the middle of the day.
Well, yeah,
The
dude.
lights are on bright. It makes no sense. It's the worst setup of all time for
I
comedy.
remember in real time when I was watching it, like being like, I was like, well, I mean, Tony's not going to be able to do Tony in this setup, so like, I wonder what he's going to do. And then like, as it starts, you're like, oh, he's just going to do Tony.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy, dude.
It's crazy.
Good for him.
It's the
That's
nuttiest
ballsy.
thing. Should have never done it. But the fact that he did it, whatever. It's like, listen, man, there's going to be some people that tried to capitalize on that, and that was a big thing. Like AOC really mobilized, which is funny because I'm almost certain that AOC's been to see Kill Tony.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, almost certain. Almost certain.
Wait,
that
here
she's
at the
been in
mothership?
I don't think so here, but somewhere saw Kill Tony.
She probably loves it. They're all so
I
funny.
wonder who. Let's call him up.
All right, let's get to the bottom of it. Wait, we have access.
Call Tony Hinchcliffe.
You just called him. That's hilarious.
Hey, dude, you're live. You're live on the air right now with Dave Smith. I need to answer a question. I need a question answered. Did AOC ever come to see Kill Tony?
She says that she did, but we're almost positive that she didn't. I never met her in any of the shows in LA. I mean, she could have conceivably have bought a ticket to Madison Square Garden, but she never posted about it.
Well, she probably
never-
wouldn't post about it. It's too sketchy. Your show's sketchy.
Yeah.
But so how do you know that she says that she was there?
She tweeted that she's been to a taping. When all that stuff went down, she said that she's disappointed in me and she's been to a taping. I can't remember the exact tweet right now, but it was the day of the Madison Square Garden Trump thing. She posted, "I'm really disappointed in Tony Hinchcliffe. I'm a fan of Kill Tony and have been to a taping." Something like that. I don't want to misquote her, like she would certainly do to me.
But she's been there and she was surprised? That makes no sense.
Yeah. No, nothing these people fucking say make any sense. They're out of their goddamn minds. And now their voices are quieted, thank God.
Tony, America's back, baby. America's
Can't
back.
believe it. Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go. I gotta go, brother. I love you.
rock and roll. Bye-bye.
This episode's brought to you by Roka. And this is important, so don't skip this shit. I've been wearing Roka for years, and I absolutely love them. You guys know I can wear anything, and I choose Roka. Bad eyesight should never get in the way of you living your best life, especially when you can get your hands on a pair of glasses from Roka. Roka is a
we run with
performance
this
eyewear brand for
433.
people who give a shit. If you're out there getting after it, investing in yourself to get better, then Roka is the brand for you. Their glasses are super high quality, lightweight, super comfortable, and they stay on your damn face. For my
Yeah.
four-eyed friends out there, that means you can ditch the contacts and actually enjoy wearing glasses when you're working out.
Okay.
Roka also offers prescription sunglasses in most frames, so they can have you covered there too. And because they cut their own lenses in-house, Roka can offer a wider range than most. So no matter how fucked up your eyes are,
what to do.
odds are that Roka has something that will work for you. Some brands have made it easy to get glasses online. Roka has actually made them better. Check them out. Tap the banner to find a pair of kick-ass glasses now, or visit Roka.com and use the code Rogan for 20% off at checkout. That's ROKA.com.
Nobody who's ever been to Kill Tony would be disappointed.
It didn't matter.
And that
it
doesn't
was
make
a
any sense.
political tool.
Of course.
It's like if
Of
you
course.
need, you have a wrench. Here's a
Yeah,
bolt.
like
I need
a-
to use the wrench. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Like so, AOC was telling people, send it out in all your group chats, let people know.
Ball, that ball.
It's not. They're not.
But you
They're
can't.
not the most sensitive people. They're like resilient people. They're not gonna. People are gonna get upset about a joke, but they're also gonna understand it's just a fucking joke. And then when they know, and then when if someone does tell them, oh, Puerto Rico really does have a giant garbage problem. Like it's a giant problem, the overflowing land. You ever see it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. You look at the images. You're like, oh my god, you got to do something about this. You can't cover your island in garbage. This is nuts.
Yeah, it's look, it's I just like I was saying before though, man. I feel like if you zoom out, like if you look at it closely, you would be like you said with the oh yeah.
Yeah, she said
Yeah.
she's been to more.
She's
more
been to
than one.
shows.
Yeah.
Wow. Before people try to act like this is some PC overly sensitive nonsense, which is what it is. I've been to Kill Tony shows. I'm from the Bronx. I don't give a shit about crude humor. Then what are you doing?
Well,
Then what are you doing?
clearly
Don't
you
pretend
do.
that your support for Trump is a joke. Own it. You're doing a set to support him. That's a choice. Listen, you guys have a real problem with someone disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
And you want to, in any way, shape, or form that's possible, turn that person into a demon. You never want to have
With
someone
ball,
who has an
without
opposing
ball.
perspective that should be considered or maybe countered with better information, which is what we're all supposed to be doing. Ideally, with people of good character and who go into arguments with good faith, you should be able to respectfully disagree and have conversations with things. This is like everybody who thinks one way is bad, everybody who thinks this way is good. We'll do whatever we can to destroy the people that are that way.
All right. Let's try
Obama,
it.
there was a guy at the Trump rally that said that Puerto Rico's a pile of garbage. Those are human beings. Like, was that?
on,
Hey,
dude.
was that guy maybe telling a joke?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Is he telling a joke?
Well,
Do you know what jokes are? You're my age. You know what jokes are? What are we doing?
Come on.
Come on, bro.
Like we and
What are we doing?
we all grew up on like in the America of Howard Stern and The Simpsons and all this stuff. It's not like jokes are foreign to any of us.
Yeah, we all forgot about Superbad.
Yeah, like,
we
what-
forget about Tropic Thunder. Do we forget how those
right.
things work?
Right. And you know, and her point is so stupid. I mean, she's like, "Hey, you're a Trump supporter. Own it." It's like, yeah, he's speaking at a Trump event at Madison Square Garden.
has nothing to do with the
But I'm saying
joke.
just the fact that he's there clearly already says, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm supporting this guy." And then he's a comedian, so he's like, "I'm going to do what I do here with it." You know? And if
Exactly.
if AOC wanted to come out and say something like, she'd go, "Listen, I'm actually a fan of Tony. I really like the show Kill Tony.
That
I
joke
don't
was
think
fucked up."
She goes, "I don't think it's appropriate at a political event
And
to
she'd be
have an
right.
insult comic." That'd be a reasonable thing to
Yeah,
say.
she'd
Okay,
be
fine.
correct.
But
I don't think it was
again,
appropriate.
yes, but that's kind of
fucking
that's on the
babies in the crowd.
campaign. That's on the
Yes.
campaign. That's not on
100%.
Tony. You know what I mean? And like so, but that's not what she's saying. And again, it's like, you know, look, if you, to the point you were making before, right, about the Russia collusion hoax and no one getting in trouble for it. If you were to look at, say, the weapons of mass destruction lie that got us into war in Iraq, killed
Yeah.
1 million people, cost trillions of dollars, and tens of thousands of our bravest young men blowing their brains out, just an unmitigated disaster. And none of the people who sold that lost their jobs or are, they're not like, I don't know what they should be doing. Maybe like picking up garbage by the side of the road, apologizing to every car that passes them.
Well,
I don't know.
Let's pause for a second and compare. There's people that said that there was weapons of mass destruction. They willfully created this story. It's a fake story.
100%.
No one got in trouble. Trump paid off some lady who says he fucked her.
Yep.
And made a bookkeeping error. So he got hit with 34 felons.
Yep.
Now, if you want to just be that person that says he's a convicted felon and just repeat it over and over again, understand that now you're changing what the law means because you don't like a guy, and that can be used on you. This is what happens in dictatorships. This is what happens when communism takes over a country and you get a military dictatorship. They just throw the laws at you. And they're doing it right in front of your face, and you're okay repeating it. He's a convicted felon. He's a convicted felon. He's a convicted felon for 34 misdemeanors, which are all the same thing.
Which weren't really felonies.
Which
either.
weren't felonies, and we're past the statute of limitations. So
Yes.
how much do you hate freedom?
Yeah, it's not. Listen, none of the Trump legal charges were an example where, look, the former president of the United States of America clearly broke the law. And we don't want to politicize, the legal system here, but it's so obvious he broke the law that we have to prosecute him. It was, we're coming up with a novel legal theory that we've never prosecuted anyone under before. And if you interpret it this way, then we could interpret this misdemeanor that's past the statute of limitations as a felony. So
Now, how does this not freak out liberals who are obsessed with criminal reform?
because that's not
Do you
their
know how
side
nutty
of the
that is?
issue. Yeah.
Just think about how nutty
It
that
is.
is.
It is.
One of the best things that I do on this show is when I have Josh Dubin on, who used to work with the Innocence Project,
Mm-hmm.
who now does things on his own, where they're trying to find people that have been unfairly prosecuted by bad judges and by bad prosecutors and get them out of fucking jail.
Oh, can I just say real quick, dude, because if I don't, I want to make sure I say this while we're here, but to President-elect Donald Trump, dude, he came to the Libertarian Party convention this year, and he promised us, and a whole bunch of people, myself included, like, supported him for this, and he did carry, I think, the Libertarian vote, and he promised us he was going to free Ross Ulbricht on day one. And, like, if you're listening, Mr. President, if this gets to you, please come through on that promise, man. This kid has done over a decade in jail already. He was guilty of creating a website. It was like a dark web type thing, and I guess some people sold drugs on it and stuff. But he's done 10 years, over 10 years.
Yeah, have you ever seen the documentary on that?
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
interesting because it does seem.
I know his mom.
Seems like he was railroaded.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it seems like they came up with some sort of a phony murder for hire charge.
Well, they accused him of that, but then they withdrew that charge.
Yeah.
He was never convicted of that.
Right.
He got life without parole for making a website. And I've gotten to know his mother, Lynn, over the years, and she's like the sweetest lady, and she's just in the middle of this nightmare. Like, her whole life has been a nightmare for the last 11 years or whatever it's been. And I really please come through on that one. There's no political capital even to be spent on it. It's one of the best things he did when he was president last year. Last time was freeing people who were just in jail on BS and way over prosecuted. And he said he was going to do it on day one. And I'm just saying a lot of people supported him for that. I really hope he comes through. That would be amazing.
Well, we're going to know a lot about what he's going to do, whether he comes through or not.
Yeah.
That'll tell us a lot. If he comes through, I think a lot of people will be able to hear. Wouldn't you love to see him on a podcast? Wouldn't you love to talk to him on a podcast?
Love to, yeah.
And ask him questions about what actually happened.
Yeah.
Well, look, now that we know what we know now, like the FBI did this whole internal thing with him, and they used people and agents to trap him. But now what we know about what they did with the kidnapping case with Gretchen Whitmer, we didn't know that before. We didn't know that you could have a kidnapping case where there's 14 people and 12 of them are FBI informants. So you got 12 people working with the FBI, 2 retards, and you convince these dumbasses that they should go and kidnap the fucking governor, and they're like cosplaying. These guys are idiots. They might have been playing fucking game of Dungeons and Dragons in the woods. They're idiots.
Well, there's an old
They're
saying.
gullible people.
There's an old saying. It goes something like, "The FBI always gets their man because it's always their man."
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
There's a lot
dude,
of that.
there's been dozens and dozens of these FBI, what they call sting operations, which are really
Yes.
entrapment, since 9/11,
Yes.
where they get, we thwarted another terrorist attack.
So
But
this
no, they
is-
didn't thwart a terrorist attack. They planned a terrorist attack and then thwarted it. Like,
Yeah.
it was never going to happen. By the way, a little note on that: every single time, I just find this fascinating. Every time the FBI wants to do one of these terrorist entrapment things, which again they've done dozens and dozens of since 9/11. Every time when they approach like young Muslim guys who are like on radical websites or something like that, every time they never go up there and they say, hey, how do you feel about America being free and prosperous? Or how do you feel about the fact that we don't have Sharia law here or anything? They never do that. They always go, how do you feel about American foreign policy? Look at all these innocent Muslims that we're killing over there in that part of the world. Doesn't that make you angry? Doesn't that make you want to do something about it? See, like when the FBI wants to do entrapment, all of a sudden they know what motivates terrorism. They're not like, oh, you hate us for our freedom, or the dumb shit that they say to the American public. They know exactly how to entrap these people. They go, how do you feel about all these Palestinian babies getting killed right now? You know, that's America's money and weapons that are doing it, and that's how they get them. But you look at the first World Trade Center attack, was all just the FBI screwed it up.
Yeah.
They were following it the whole time.
Yeah.
And then they screwed it up, and they almost took down the towers.
And if we got to hear Ulbricht's story, I bet it'd be
Be amazing.
wildly different than the narrative that we heard in the courtroom, or it was in the documentary. I bet it's wildly different, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got railroaded. Just that we know too much now. We know about that case. There's multiple different cases. There's the Dallas case where they got that kid to blow up a building. They gave him a fake bomb and a cell phone, and he activated. They radicalized that kid. He was just a dumb, low IQ kid that's 19, fucking gullible. And they talked him into joining, and here's what we're gonna do, and then they say they're preventing crime. Like, you're actually making it. You're making it and then stopping it, and that's fucking wrong. You're cheating.
Yeah, I don't know about this
You're rigging
formation.
the
It's
pinball
not
game,
the
man.
best.
You're, and we know that now.
This formation
so
not
it would
that
be
great.
really interesting to hear his story. Yeah, 10 years is fucking plenty. Too much.
Yeah.
Way too much.
No, you can never give that back to him.
Yeah.
But, like, just let him go free. And it's also just such a situation where you just, and obviously, like, I know his mother, so I'm like, I'm kind of personally invested in it. But it's like, this kid is no threat. It's that nobody thinks like, oh, if we let him out, he's some type of violent criminal who might do another violent thing or something like that. Like, that's just not going to happen. You could just end the nightmare that this sweet woman is going through, and him, of course,
Yes.
too.
Okay, so we both agree on this, but let me ask you, okay, what about Snowden? Do you think he has the balls to pardon Snowden?
Well, okay, so the thing about Snowden, right, is that, and now the Julian Assange case has kind of been taken off the table, even though I guess technically he could still pardon him. But that takes real political capital. Now, I think he should pardon Snowden.
How so?
But, well, I'm just saying that, like, Snowden pissed off a lot of very powerful people. The NSA are furious about him. The CIA, they don't like him. And they do not want to set the precedent that you can release the fact that we're doing a bunch of illegal shit that we are lying to the American people about, and then you can go tell them that we are, in fact, doing the thing that we lied and said we weren't doing. They don't like that. There's going to be powerful forces that'll oppose you. Ross Ulbricht doesn't, it's not like that.
No, I completely understand. But
If he were to pardon Snowden, that would be a real signal that he is willing to take on the deep state. He's willing to take on the real powerful entrenched interests. Now, again, I'm not claiming to... It's obviously the right thing to do, morally speaking. But you got to have a really smart strategy if you're actually going to do this. I remember one time during the Ron Paul presidential campaign, I think it was in 2012, and someone asked him, like a question about, like, when you're in there and you're president, are you going to tell the CIA, like, hey, you guys are done, and you're this, and you're this? And he went, well, I might say it a little bit nicer than that. He was like, listen, I am trying to abolish the CIA, but let's be cool here.
Well, let's just let's look at this for what it is. So if Edward Snowden, if he really did expose things that were illegal, that were not supposed to be done. And the fear of bringing him back is that the people that did the illegal things want to continue doing illegal things and don't want to have any repercussions for doing illegal things. That seems like a crazy thing to support, even for them to defend it. Sounds
Yeah.
insane. They should want internal accountability. They should want to make sure that no one colors outside the lines, and no one does anything without congressional approval, all the stuff you're supposed to do when you're doing certain things. But the problem is now with the FDAA and FISA and all these different laws that have been passed that allow surveillance to
Come
be
on.
done warrantless. Like, it's kind of a moot point almost at this point. Like, the things that you would, like, back then he exposed that they could listen to every calls, they have data centers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we all know that now. Like, it's everything's still functioning, but we all know that now. The guy that exposed all that, leave him alone. You
Right.
guys you're doing illegal shit, and now it's kind of legal, and we still should be outraged. But now you can
shit.
kind of just do it.
Yeah. Well, and also, and one of the things that was so disappointing about Trump not pardoning Julian Assange and Snowden in his first term, and again, a lot of that is because it's like when he told you, why didn't he release the JFK files? Well, because he was listening to Liz Cheney's pick for defense secretary,
Yeah, but
Mike
also,
Pompeo,
he
and
was
he was
saying-
people convinced him not to do it. But it's like at a certain point, you're like, okay, first of all,
Oh.
the spying that Snowden exposed was weaponized against you.
Right.
You're like, they spied on you. So you kind of, I would think you have some like stake in being like, yeah, that should be exposed
Oh
and
my
should be
God.
abolished.
But don't you think he didn't pardon him because he wanted a second term, and he wanted
Yeah.
to like
I think
make
that was part of
things
it, yes.
run as smoothly as possibly, and try to.
The thing
they're
is, he also-
compromising. They're making deals here.
Yes, but he also had a lame duck period. I mean, he had a
Right.
period where he knew he wasn't going to have a
Right,
second term and
but-
still had the power, but he was
but-
worried about the impeachment.
And he wanted to run again.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
always wanted to run again. He was going to run again. He was
I
like,
think so, yes.
Fuck you, I'm running again.
Yes, so there's a fair point to that. Maybe now Donald Trump gets in, and I do think this is what the corporate media and all of them are really terrified about, is that now he gets in and he doesn't need to win another election. I mean, he'd like to win a midterm election and keep he's got the Senate now, we'll see. The House hasn't been determined yet, but he'd like to keep, congressional control within the Republican Party. But he doesn't need to worry about a re-election now. If he really wanted to be the drain the swamp guy,
Yes.
he's got an opportunity now where a lot of things have aligned, where it's like, I think he could really get it done, and I think he could get away with it. I think that he's taken all their bullets, both literally and metaphorically. He's been impeached. He's been convicted of felonies. He's been shot at. He's been, like, all the things have already happened. He's been demonized in a way that no public figure has been demonized in any of our lifetimes.
And it's
he
only
survived all of
made
it.
him more popular.
Yes, he's stronger. He's stronger than he's ever been.
What do you think about that thing I sent you today that compares the number of people that voted in 2020 versus the number of people that voted in 2024 and in 2016
Sure does look strange.
and in 2012? Have you seen it, Jamie?
Damn.
It's crazy.
I would say
I can send it to you if you want to see the exact
Still
chart.
counting votes.
that is a fair point. There are still votes out there. I'd like
Right.
to take a look at that again after 100% of everybody has been reported, but it does certainly seem weird.
Let's not get technical and let's just enjoy it. I'm gonna send you this, Jay, because it's so bizarre that I can't really believe it's real. When did I send it to you? Earlier today? Hang on a second, I'll find it. It's so crazy. You look at it and you go, is this real? Oh, here it is. Because it doesn't seem to make any sense, because this is like one of the most consequential elections ever. I think everybody's pretty aware of that, and everybody is very dug in on their side. The left, he's Hitler. The right, he's saving us. And so more people voted, at least the indication would be. As much people voted in 2020, if not more. Probably more people voted. But let's look at the numbers. Like, look at the difference in how many people voted for Biden in 2020. It's unprecedented. It's way higher than any other time since 2012, and I'm sure probably before that there was less people back then, right? So if you go back to when I was a kid, there was only like 200 million people in this country.
Yeah, and to be clear, 2012 and 2016 were not low turnout
No,
years.
no, they're
Like,
all consistent.
yeah.
This is what's crazy. They're consistent. Look, they're all like 60.
Shit.
Look at where the number is. It's all like
Oh, he
65
fucked
million.
that up.
Is that what it says? So that's all the same, every fucking time except 2020. In 2020, it goes way the fuck up. Look at it,
Mail-in.
it's like 80 what? Is it 82?
Mail-in voting.
Is that what it was?
81 and change.
81.
Yep.
So it goes up a fucking sizable chunk, and only once.
And it does seem like even with getting all the other votes in, you're not going to get to that.
But it's also like, look how many votes Trump got. He got even more in 2020 than he did in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell's that about? Is that because they haven't counted all the votes yet when they made this, or is that the reality of the numbers? Because that doesn't make sense either.
Yeah. And well, and you know, I just say, you know how in like the corporate media world, it's like this is the biggest crime ever to even ask this question? But you kind of can't blame us for asking it when everything you say is a lie.
The ballots that came in the middle of the night are weird. And the fact that you had mail-in ballots, that's weird. Because the thing about mail-in ballots is different than anything else. It's not a chain of custody, all right? There's a guy who drops it off, and then the postman gets it. Who knows what the fuck they're trying to do? They used to be going postal. Postmen used to be scary because they shoot a
I
bunch
remember,
of people.
yeah.
I don't know how they fixed that. But there
Yeah,
was
that
a,
did stop.
Yeah, there was a
Good
time
point.
they were like fucking separating things by zip codes and like enough, and they were just killing everybody in their office.
You remember the old Seinfeld bit on the show?
No.
Where he asks Newman's a postman, and he's like, "Why do you guys always like go crazy and just kill people?" He's like, "'Cause the mail never stops." It's so funny. It's just it keeps coming.
Yeah, that was always my suspicion. It's just like a mundane job. It's like, and you're working with these people you don't like, and then one day you're like, I'm gonna fucking kill everybody.
Yeah.
But there was
yeah.
a bunch of those guys who it became a term. There was a video game called Postal. In the
Oh,
video
really?
game, you just ran around shooting people. Yeah, it was a crazy game.
Yeah, that was a better time.
It was, but this was like the 90s that all this was going on, and something happened, and they stopped fixing. So my point is, who knows what that post guy's doing? Like, you could just throw some stuff in the garbage. If you know you're in a Republican county, throw some stuff in the garbage. If you're a cab driver
What do we get
from
here?
some other country, and you're over in America, and someone says, I'm going to give you a bag of ballots, I'm going to put them in your trunk, and you're going to go take them to this place. You're like, okay. You know, like, you're going to give me $500?
I'm
Okay, I'll
getting
drop
there.
off these ballots. Like, when you're doing, like, low-level scams in, like, small counties, where you have corrupt people that are working the voting machines, how many Republicans are paying attention? How many Democrats are paying
Right.
attention to the corrupt Republicans? There's always been election fraud.
Well,
To pretend that we lie about the very fine people, he said there were very fine people on both sides. Obama's lying about that
Yep.
in front of the whole world. They lie about everything. You don't think they would cheat?
Well, that's right, exactly. If every word that comes out of your mouth is a lie,
Right.
that you can't tell me that I'm not allowed to suspect. And also, you know, if what Rachel Maddow says is real, right? Like, if you're telling me your worldview is essentially that Adolf Hitler is running for president, it looks like it's a coin flip if he's going to win. That's what they were telling us, that it was 50-50. Turns out it wasn't. But Adolf Hitler's running. This is the end of democracy. It's on the ballot. We'll never have
Try the
elections
other
again
one.
if this guy wins. So if that's true, then why wouldn't somebody who's got a bunch of ballots for him cheat? I would do that.
Exactly.
If Adolf Hitler was about to win, I'd
Exactly.
cheat to make sure he would. If Adolf Hitler's about to win, you should do anything you can. So you're going to tell me on one hand Adolf Hitler's about to take over America, and on the other hand, but no one would ever cheat?
You
No
never
one would ever do-
break the rules
Ye-
to stop Hitler?
The conversation that people, the dumb American pop conversation is, would you murder a baby if that baby was Adolf Hitler? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's the pop question that
Right.
people ask about Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
And I think the implied correct answer is yes. You're supposed to say, I would murder baby Hitler.
I'd wait
And-
till he's 17.
Yeah, probably feel a little bit better about yourself.
Yeah, by the time
Um,
he's 17, I'd know he's a piece of shit.
And you could run a real good experiment on, like, nurture versus nature.
Right,
Like,
but
raise
you
them
can fix 'em.
loving, be nice.
Give 'em some
but-
mushrooms.
Yeah, there you go.
Fix that little fucker.
But anyway, but you're saying someone wouldn't. It's also, it's like, it's not even just that they're liars who are in the business of propaganda. It's that it's incoherent propaganda. Your propaganda doesn't even make sense. Like, if propaganda point A is true, then propaganda point B is impossible to be true.
Right.
And one of the things that I'm so happy that Trump won about, is she just needed to lose. Like this, there's a certain line of that they crossed that you're like, we need to be in a country where that doesn't work. Like
Yeah.
that can't work.
Well,
It's just too far.
Here's one of the most important precedents. You can't have someone that's running that didn't go through a primary.
Yep.
You have to at least go through and respect the process of allowing us to pick who our representative is. No one would have picked her. She didn't, when she was trying to run for president, Tulsi Gabbard nuked her out of orbit, and that was it for her. She dropped off a cliff, and that was done, and that's how it should have been until
Yeah.
Biden picked her as his vice president. Get away from that. You should always have a primary. Like, if you really believe in the democratic process and if you really believe in the Democratic Party, you should want the best representative of your party as voted for by the population.
100%.
That's
And then
that you can't have someone bypass that because you have a complete puppet.
100%. And then in addition to that, just think about how crazy this is. You're going to bypass the democratic process, and then you're running on democracy is on the ballot.
Right.
I mean, this is just too
Amazing.
much.
Amazing.
It's too much. You want to like punch yourself in the face. Like you
Yeah.
can't do that to me.
It's
You
so
can't say
awesome.
that.
Well, they've been so used to doing it before. They had full, complete control of the narrative because they own the media, and they own the media for so long. They had the run of the roost for so long that
Yeah.
they got cocky, and they didn't pay attention to the game as it was evolving. They're like a UFC 1 fighter
Yeah.
that takes time out of the gym, then steps into 2024 and tries to compete against guys of today. Like, you missed the game. The game is way past where
Yep.
you were. And you guys are still doing goofy shit, like taking people out of context and not knowing that people are going to make YouTube clips showing what he actually said versus you. And it's going to undermine your credibility even more. Obama was my favorite president. He was the best spokesman other than Clinton of all time. Now I think he's a liar.
Yeah.
I look at that thing of him saying, he said there's verified people on both sides. That's not what he said. He
Yeah.
said, I'm not talking about the KKK and white supremacists. They should be condemned.
It was so clear.
So
he made
clear.
it totally clear. And what he was saying was that there were very fine people on both sides of the arguments about tearing statues down.
Yes.
Like he was saying, look, it's reasonable that there are some people who are like, no, this is our history, we want to keep it up. And then there's other people who are like, this represents slavery or something like that, we
Yes.
want to take it down. And then first off, it was clear when he said it that that's what he meant. And then they ask him a follow-up question. Are you saying the white supremacists are very fine people? He goes, no. How many times do I need to say that?
Yes.
No, I am not saying that any of the white supremacists. And like, that's not enough.
And then there was a sneaky thing that they used to do. They would ask him, will you disavow white supremacy? Will you disavow white supremacy? Like, what are you talking? First of all, that's like saying to someone, like, will you... anything, any crime that you
how
would
is he
never do.
better than
Like,
her?
will you
It's
disavow
not.
murder? Like, of course I'll disavow murder. Oh, well, all of a sudden you're implicated in something where you have to disavow murder. Like, you're connected somehow or another to murder now. Dave Smith, under any circumstances, do you disavow murder? You're like, I'm not murdering anybody. What the fuck are you saying?
And
So-
after he had done it like maybe 100 times, no
Right.
exaggeration, they'd go, now you still haven't disavowed white supremacy.
Yeah, it
and
does-
he'd be like, no, I have.
over and over again.
Now, but
yeah.
to your point, which I think is a really good one, and I think I love the analogy for people who are MMA fans. It really is like it's like someone coming into MMA in 2024 and being like, I'm a jiu-jitsu specialist. I've never trained wrestling or striking.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, that's not going to work anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I know that worked in 1993,
Yeah.
but like that's not going to work. They have not adapted to the new world that we're living in now. And you saw there was a lot of evidence of this. Like, these things that used to work now come with a heavy price. So one of the things that politicians used to do in general was that they would give the same stump speech everywhere they go. Message discipline is what
Right.
it's called, and you always stay on message. And this is the idea, is that you're never going to get your message out there unless you say the same thing over and over again to everyone. But now we have the internet, and you have these compilations of Kamala Harris saying she's from a middle-class family like 75 times in a row, and you just look like a psychopath. You're like, oh, what are you... So now there's like a cost to playing the game in the old way, but they don't
Right.
adjust.
Right.
And Trump, whether even intentionally or not, was always just kind of like, oh, well, I just speak off the cuff. So I don't do that. You know, like, I mean, he's got themes that he hits a lot, like all of us kind of do.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that, and he did. And Donald Trump, one of the brilliant things, and man, I mean, I can't believe I haven't just asked you this already about this,
Shit.
but one of the really brilliant things that Donald Trump did, which obviously, look, RFK did it, and Vivek Ramaswamy, I think both, like, they recognize, like, look, we're in a new landscape here. And there are these shows on the internet that have much bigger audiences than these traditional shows. Oh, and by the way, I get to go long and I can really give an in-depth, you know, like, point on every single topic. And, dude, I mean, Trump coming on here and her refusing to, this is, I mean, dude, you kind of put Donald Trump in the White House.
Just
Like, this is
settle down.
amazing.
Settle down. People are listening.
Everyone's thinking it.
Well, for sure, him getting to be himself and just have a conversation with someone who's not being hostile.
Yeah.
You know, and I did ask him questions that I wanted answers to, like this proof that he lost in 2020. He did not provide me with that. And I've said, and we talked about it in depth yesterday, that if I was accused of election denying, which election denial, it's like there's Holocaust deniers, number one, and then there's maybe
Climate.
vaccine denier and election denier. Election denier is probably a little higher than vaccine denier. You could be a kook and a vaccine denier but still believe that Donald Trump lost the election. But election denier, you're cast out of the kingdom. There's a couple other ones that go underneath that, but those are the big ones. Those are the big ones. And you get put into a box like instantaneously. If I was put in that box, I would have responses to every question. I would say, well, in Georgia, there was blah 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 ballots that were blah blah blah. This would have been these people were dead. These people they should have never been voting in the first place. They were not United States citizens. I would have all the information ready to fire. And he didn't. He was like, there's books that tell you that. I have the suspicion that he's way busier than me. And I can barely pay attention to things.
Yeah.
Sometimes I agree to do things, and my wife tells me we're going to do something. What are we talking about? She goes, you said yes to it yesterday. I did? When? You were making coffee. I wasn't paying attention. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Where are we going? You know, but that's just normal life stuff, right? This guy is literally running for fucking president. He's got, what, all these golf courses everywhere and businesses everywhere and Mar-a-Lago and fucking family. There's millions of things. So probably they told him the election was stolen. He told me, find the results, find it, let's get it overturned, these fucking criminals. I don't know how much he really looked into it. I don't know. I don't know how much he studied it, because
He didn't really have an answer for
I
you.
would want you to regurgitate it fact by fact. And I think
Bro,
Vivek can
come
do that. If you ask Vivek a question about that, if you ask J.D. Vance a question about that, I bet if they were accused, they would be able to rattle off all those numbers and statistics.
I think that Vivek probably wouldn't make the claim exactly in the same way
no,
that Donald
I'm saying
Trump
if he
is.
was accused.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If he was
Sure.
accused.
Well, yeah. No, Vivek isn't going to say anything without having like a
100%.
detailed answer to it.
Nor
And that's
is-
not Trump. That's not.
Nor
Trump.
is J.D.
Yes. Listen, Trump is different than Vivek and JD. He's a different type of animal.
There was
I mean,
so much evidence.
well, the thing is, one of the things that was really interesting, and that was one of the most interesting moments of your show with him, was that you weren't asking it the way CNN would ask it. You weren't badgering him and like you were, after having a very honest, good faith conversation for a while, you were asking in good faith, like, what's the evidence? And yeah, look, I think the truth is that his lawyers made a lot of outlandish claims, none of which they could prove in court. Essentially what he has in terms of the argument, I think is kind of what we have, what we just looked at. We're like, sure does look strange. Sure does seem weird to me that 80 million plus people voted for Joe Biden, and the regime was so working against him in every other way.
Right.
Like, Glenn Greenwald, who's, I think just one of the absolute, like, most brilliant people out there.
I agree.
His work is incredible.
I love that guy.
I love the way he put it. I thought it was perfect. Where he goes, he's like, I don't really have any evidence that they stole the election from him, but they clearly rigged the thing against him. And then just kind of goes through like all the censorship, the Hunter Biden story, the media. And so in that environment, it's very easy. You know, the analogy that I use, I think I may have said this before to you, but it's almost like if there's a guy who's like cheating on his wife all the time, and then one day she's like, last Friday you didn't answer your phone when you were out. I know you were cheating on me. And she's wrong. He wasn't cheating that Friday.
Right.
Like she's kind of right, even though she's wrong. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like she might get the detail wrong,
Yeah.
but her overall suspicion is in fact correct. I
Yeah.
think there was a lot of that with Trump supporters, where it's just like, listen, man, you framed him for treason for 3 years of his
Yeah.
presidency. Then you shut down the economy, and that was totally, partially at least, to ruin his economy for his
Yeah.
re-election year. Then you were totally supporting the riots that were destroying, like you were just
Yeah.
causing chaos. Then you overhauled the way we do votes, and you killed his big October surprise story by censoring it off all the social media sites. And now you're telling me the most unimpressive senator in the history of America, Joe Biden, got 80 plus million votes. He got more votes than Obama in 2008. Really? Like this just smell. But that is not something you
not
can
enough.
take to court.
Right. That's not something you can say definitively as a fact and defame people and slander people.
Right.
And that's where Giuliani's fucked, right? Giuliani got hit with a huge lawsuit. How much was it? Like
It was,
150
I don't
million?
remember. It was a lot. But but also Rudy Giuliani is a lawyer, and he should know that you kind of can't say that unless you got something to really present.
And the
what was
way
that?
you should say
Powell
it is
said-
by presenting the evidence. You
Yeah.
shouldn't even make claims. You should probably just present the evidence.
Well, they were saying. I mean, Sidney Powell, I think that's her name, right? And Giuliani.
$148 million damages verdict adds to Rudy Giuliani's over his legal lies about 2 Georgia election workers. So what did he say that these ladies did?
So this is a defamation suit.
It must be. What did he say that they did? Defamation case brought by 2 former Georgia election workers marks a new low point for the man once lauded as America's mayor, whose advocacy of Donald Trump's false election claims led to criminal charges and hefty legal bills. What did he say that they did? What did he say? What did he say? Let's find out what his statements were. See if you can find it.
Remember when Ron Paul destroyed Rudy Giuliani?
Yeah,
So-
his formation's not
Here it says
that
Giuliani
great.
accuses him of participating in a wide-range conspiracy to thwart the will of Georgia's voters who had selected Democrat Joe Biden over Republican incumbent. He faces 13 charges, including violation of Georgia's anti-racketeering law, the federal version of which was one of his favorite tools as a prosecutor in the 1980s. That's crazy. Because he's the one who took out, the mob.
Yep.
No.
Jesus Christ. So, but let's find out what he said, if we can. I'm interested.
Isn't it annoying that they make it so hard to find the actual
Yeah.
thing?
Fuck.
Lies he spread about them that upended their lives with racist threats. Well, what were the lies? What did he say? When it says upended their lives, click on that link. See what it says. Georgia election worker suing Rudy Giuliani tells jurors that his lies made her fear for her life. So what the fuck did he say? Repeated false claims about her and her mother, saying that they were engaged in changing votes. I personally cannot repair my reputation at the moment because your client is still lying on me and ruining my reputation further, she told Giuliani.
Bro, what?
She
This
sobbed. She
fucking
testified that her
parted
life
the
was turned
sea for
upside
him.
down
That's
by
crazy.
the accusations, though they were quickly debunked by state officials. Her attorneys displayed a few of the graphic messages accusing her of treason and more that she received after Giuliani in December of 2020 falsely accused workers at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta of tampering
Let's
with
go.
ballots. Yeah, you gotta have real evidence if you want to say something like that.
And again, Rudy Giuliani is a lawyer. He should know that,
California's only reported 54% right now, so that's somewhere in the range of 9 million plus votes.
Shit.
That's the biggest missing.
Oh, so far still?
Oh my
How do they
God,
count it
dude.
all
Only
up?
54%.
Yeah, I don't know.
at
This
this
is
point.
updated too.
How are they? Why are they so slow? They suck at everything over there now.
85 for Nevada, 73 or something for Washington and Oregon. Oregon's at 62%, so they still have a lot to go up there. I don't know
Alright.
if that's
All right, so we'll
but-
see what these numbers look like.
But
when
at the
they
end of
have
the
them all
day,
in.
so there might still be more millions. So it might get close to the 80 million mark. It'd be interesting to see, because that's a misleading chart. I didn't know that there were so many that hadn't turned in their votes yet. That doesn't surprise me about California. Get your shit together, you fucking dorks.
Yeah, they can't do anything.
They're charging 14% in state
Oh
taxes,
my
then
God.
another 1% if you live in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles. You get hit with another
Fucking
1%.
defense.
Dude,
It's
that's
not
like
doing
agent
anything.
and manager fees. You know?
Yeah.
You imagine, you make a good amount of money, like let's say you make $100,000 a year, you have to pay $140,000 to the government for what? For what? And
It's-
then if you move to Tennessee, zero. Move to Texas, zero.
And they wonder why people are flooding out of their state by the hundreds of
And
thousands.
you can't even count the votes in time, you fucking
Yeah.
knuckleheads. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. No, they can't do anything.
It's such a goofy state, just overburdened with regulations. You can't even have flavored vapes anymore.
Yeah, it's
Little
really-
Billy's hooked on the strawberry mist. You gotta take it out of the store to protect my little Billy. It's the strawberry that gets him. You can't have flavored Zins.
Well, and isn't it so like the whole like war on tobacco, which I guess vapes aren't tobacco, but the whole like like crackdown on smoking and everything that
Yeah.
kind of happened in my lifetime is it's really really wild when you take into account all the stuff that Bobby Kennedy talks about.
Oh yeah.
Where you're like, yeah, but we're like the most unhealthy country. And you took away, like, yeah, a lot more people used to smoke cigarettes, and cigarettes aren't good for you, sure, but we were a healthier country when people were smoking cigarettes.
We need regulation. My little Billy and his strawberry vapes. Do you ever use Zins?
Occasionally.
No, these are Lucy's. These are espresso flavored. This is contraband in California.
Are these,
are eights.
wait, are these the Tucker Carlson ones?
No.
these
This
are-
is another company, Lucy's. These are breakers. They have a little thing in there. You break it. It gives you flavor, just like coffee. Yeah, break it. Bite down. Chew on it.
That's some bullshit.
Oh yeah, baby. Illegal in California. Right here, we're in
Yeah,
Texas.
this doesn't seem like it should be illegal.
Experiencing freedom.
In Texas.
No, if you want flavor, you have to have that and a stick of gum. If you live in California, you can get your cinnamon gum, and you can chew your cinnamon gum with your fucking no flavor Zin, and you could have a nice little experience, almost like you have a cinnamon Zin. But you're not allowed to have a cinnamon Zin because
Yeah,
you're too much of
guy.
a fucking baby. You can't control yourself.
Well, it's like, and
No
even
gambling
outside,
either, you fuck.
Dude, I mean, I'm on the road all the time. Yeah, right. And you go throughout this whole country, and it's like, yeah, people don't smoke anymore. That was effective. I mean, not like the way they used to. There's not people smoking cigarettes like that.
No.
But every single town I go to in this entire country has an Arby's and a Burger King and a KFC and like they have
Yeah.
every single town, even when they have nothing else.
Yep.
They have every single type of fast food.
Yep.
And you look around and like everybody's obese, everyone's unhealthy. I mean, when you rattle off, when Bobby Kennedy gave that speech when he threw his support behind Donald Trump, I was watching that with my wife and my mother-in-law. And they both like have tears in their eyes as he's just reading down the stats of how unhealthy we are as a country. It's just, man, one thing, and I'm really, really glad that that Bobby ran for president this year, and I'm really glad he ended up throwing his support behind Trump, and hopefully he gets a really important position in there. But the one thing that I almost felt like you couldn't argue with him, that even if you don't blame the same culprits that he blames,
how does he
which
just
is what they
keep
love
up
to,
with Bays?
to
There's no
say,
way.
it's like, how is everyone not talking about this? How is this not an issue that every single presidential candidate has to address?
It's killing people.
Yeah. And our
killing people.
kids.
It's killing kids, and it's making people way more vulnerable to a host of other diseases, including cancers. It's terrible for you. Cardiovascular, like the 77%, I think Bobby said, 73% of all American boys are not eligible for the military. So they are unfit to serve because they're either obese or they have a host of these metabolic conditions that have come about from poor diet.
Yeah.
And from poison, from eating poison. Essentially, you're slow dosing your body with poison and sugar all day long, and that's most people. And we don't do anything about that, but then we try to regulate vapes.
Let's go.
Do you
Strawberry
know
vape,
do you know
my
Nicole Shanahan?
Yes. I haven't met her in person, but I actually did a FaceTime with her, and I think Willie D from the Ghetto Boys.
Really? That's an odd pairing together. I
was
think
awesome.
she's great. I had her on my podcast a couple times, and it's just
Yes, 77% of young Americans between the age of 17 and 24 are not considered fit for military service. Unbelievable, dude. 11 mental health, and that's to set substance abuse, education, social and behavioral
Bro,
factors,
what the
criminal
hell?
records. U.S. military is facing a recruitment crisis due to these challenges, as well as a lack of interest among young people. So it's only 11% is like physically so unhealthy that they can't do it. That's obesity, actually. So there's probably a bunch of other conditions other than obesity.
Right.
Mental health issues. I wonder, it says significant factors. I wonder what number that is. I bet drug and alcohol abuse is a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one. It says 8% for drug and alcohol abuse. So I wonder how much the mental health is. I bet that's a big one. Doesn't say, does it? Let's find out. Because that seems like there's a lot of people out there with mental health conditions. Medical, physical health. Drug and alcohol abuse 8%. Medical, physical health 7%. What does it say about mental though? Mental health and overweight conditions. Oh, there. 4% mental health, 7% medical, physical only, 8% drug abuse, 11% overweight. Wow.
Dude, she
Nicole. Look at this, 44% though, more than one reason or condition. 44, almost half, more than one of these problems. That
Yeah,
makes
that's a
you-
fucking goal. I knew it. Look at that.
I was
It's ridiculous.
I can't remember what town I was in, but so Nicole
That's
Shanahan,
so crazy.
I think she's great, and it was really, really interesting. I had her on my podcast twice. Just really, really smart lady who's really
It's crazy how you can predict
knows
it.
a lot about this stuff. So she sent me this like video that she posted, and so I'm in a hotel room, and I was there with my buddy Rob Bernstein,
This
who's
is
our
so
co-host
dumb.
of my podcast, Part of the Problem. Very, very funny comedian, very smart guy. And so
That was
I literally,
stupid,
I
bro.
was texting with him, and we were like on our way to go to the show. So I was like, hey, meet in the lobby in 10 minutes. And then I got an Uber taking us to the comedy club. I can't remember where we were. And Nicole Shanahan sends me this video. It was like a video that she put out on Twitter. I didn't know what it was going to be. You know, she just sent me it, and I just click on it and play it. And it was just about like what her family went through with their kids, you know, like illnesses and stuff. And it's like this, and it's the most touching video ever. And I'm literally sit down. It's so powerful that I sit down and I'm just watching this whole thing. And I started crying watching it. It's like I got kids with health issues really cuts close to the bone for me. But as I'm sitting there, just like literally sobbing, watching this video, it's so emotional. And then literally it just dawns on me in the middle of it that I'm supposed to meet my comedian friend in 1 minute in the lobby to go to this show. And I was just sitting here like, what am I doing? I'm sitting in my hotel room crying about these kids. But anyway, the point of it is that like, hey, look, I don't know enough about this stuff. You know, I know about stuff that I know about. I don't know enough about this. I really should educate myself more on it. But if your argument is that like that Bobby and Nicole are blaming the wrong culprits. You know, it's not the vaccines, and it's not the Wi-Fi, and it's not like, okay, I don't know, but like, what is it then? And why are you not interested in this?
Right.
Why are they the only ones who are talking about this? You're telling me we lead the world in chronic illness, and that's not something that comes up in any presidential election ever,
Right.
other than when Bobby Kennedy runs
Right.
for president? That's insane.
You don't think the increase in the number of autism cases is an area we should discover? We should look into? We should investigate? You think that that's all been figured out? Like,
well,
why are
yeah.
you so convinced?
And explain. I'm sorry. I'm letting you know that I'm somewhat ignorant on this subject. So just like explain it to me like I'm really, really stupid. Talk slowly.
they can't do
Okay,
it.
I can understand where if you're talking about very mild autism, okay, like what we used to call Asperger's, which I guess they don't call it that anymore.
Right.
But if you're talking about mild autism and you want to convince me that that went undiagnosed in the past, I can totally believe that. There is no way that moderate or severe autism went it may have not been correctly diagnosed, but you did not notice that. Like,
But
I'm
there's
sorry.
enough of a rise in numbers that it should be a concern
There's no
for
way.
everyone.
I'm saying there's
Yeah.
no possible way that there isn't an increase going on
Right.
here, because obviously, even in the 1940s or in the 1950s, if someone was non-verbal, they would have noticed that.
Yeah.
They would have noticed that this. You know what I mean? Like,
If there
this
was a
is-
lot of kids like that in your school, you'd know.
there's no way you would have called it something. Maybe you
Yes.
wouldn't have like understood it the way we understand it today. And thank God people do understand it better. And there's a lot more tools that are provided, and there's a lot more awareness about it, and special schools and things like that. But come on, like You know, so much of this is it's one of the things that exposes the how full of shit our whole system is when you just see that there's no even desire to get to the bottom of this. It's like the Trump assassination attempts.
But not only that,
no desire.
There's no desire to get to the bottom of it, and it's about children.
Yeah.
Which are the most vulnerable people that we all should be protecting. But they're so entrenched in this ideology that you have to trust science. And if you're a vaccine denier, you're a bad person. Like, no one's a vaccine denier. What we're saying is there may be a correlation, and there may be something that, if investigated, it shows has been covered up. And there may be a situation where the vaccine companies have complete immunity to prosecution.
Yep.
They can never be held liable, which was the only way that they could still manufacture these things, because they said that they cannot be safe and effective.
Yes,
They
and it's-
cannot be safe for everybody. There's going to be side effects.
That's exactly right, dude.
And they can't be liable
well-
for those side effects, because then they would go under. This is what set this whole chain in motion, where when I was a kid, you got 3 vaccines. Now you have 72.
Right.
It's wild.
And it reminds me kind of you remember like when they were trying to push the COVID passports, the vaccine
Yes.
passports, and the logic would just fall apart on its
Yeah.
face. Like you're like, wait a minute, you're like you're telling me the vaccine is 100% effective. You're saying if you take the vaccine, you can't get COVID or spread COVID, and then you're also telling me that the people who are vaccinated in this restaurant need to be protected from the unvaccinated entering this restaurant. That doesn't make sense.
No.
I'm sorry, I'm not a genius, but I can figure out the logic in that is flawed, okay?
Also-
and in the same sense though, it's like, so what is if you're arguing that all these vaccines are safe and Bobby Kennedy's a kook, then why do they need the liability protection?
Yes, absolutely. There was also another thing that they did that didn't make any sense, because it went against the science. And they was saying that if you don't get vaccinated, it's going to cause variants. And that's not what they say.
Yeah.
What people who
He has a
study
guess.
viruses and vaccines say is you do not vaccinate during a pandemic with a non-sterilizing vaccine. So meaning if you give it to someone and they can still transmit and they can still catch the disease, you're going to cause
Right.
these variants. And there is a scientific paper that I posted like early into the pandemic that said this, and people got so upset at me. I'm like, tell me what this says. What this said, there's virologists that would go on these podcasts that, they'd have to be the people that are willing to step outside the line and say these things. They're saying this is not what you ever do during a pandemic, because you're going to create
the same
variants.
shit,
And that's
huh?
exactly what happened. And doctors started blaming the variants on the unvaccinated. But if you question those doctors, explain to me how that works. There's no fucking answer. It's just a narrative that they were have to say, vaccine good, anything else bad, ivermectin, you're crazy, killing people, death, blood on your hands. It was all a psyop, and it was super effective. And it was a way for them to make ungodly amounts of money. And that's what it was. And the quicker we accept that and realize that we're vulnerable to that kind of shit, if we still keep following along the same kind of lines that we're on today, as soon as we realize that, the better off we all are, all of us.
Yeah, and I think I got here in a kind of similar way to you, which is I think a story for like millions
God,
of
come on.
Americans, is that I never even thought about this issue. I never dove into reading a lot about any vaccine until there was this COVID vaccine. And then I really dove into it and read a lot about it and found out that you guys were lying through your fucking teeth about the whole goddamn thing, and that the whole clinical trials were totally rigged and totally fake, and that you were able to get everybody in the the scientific institutions of our government to all repeat these lies, and then everybody in the corporate media and the political class to repeat these lies. And then when Bobby Kennedy came along and said, well, you know how that was all bullshit? There's a lot of bullshit with these other vaccines. I was like, I'm listening. That
Yeah.
doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
It doesn't seem unreasonable at all. And the fact that they were trying to silence legitimate scientists, doctors, professors at major universities for stepping outside the lines. They were trying to remove them from Twitter. They were trying to silence them. They worked in conjunction with the original Twitter to do that. They silenced real experts. And when that lady from Twitter had to testify in front of Congress, it was amazing. That was amazing. And watch those people grill her.
Yeah.
Like, are you a doctor? Like, why are you silencing doctors? Like,
It was
what
the
are you
same.
doing?
That was the same. The one you had on, right? With Tim
Yes.
Pool.
Yes.
And one of the interesting things about that was, that was a great, still probably one of my all-time favorite JRE episodes. But it was when they were arguing that like they don't have a bias, and then I think Tim was like, yeah, but you ban people for like dead naming or
Right.
misgendering,
Right.
and she was like, well, yeah, I mean that's hateful, and you're like, yeah, but that's a bias. Like
Right.
that right there is a
Right.
bias.
That's a bias.
And it's one thing when you're just talking about like whether we're calling somebody a boy or a girl, but then you realize like, oh, you have the exact same thing when it actually comes to like very important medical information about a product that Americans are being forced to take.
Right.
This is madness.
No matter what you say, they're being forced. They're being forced if they want to fly. They're getting forced if they want to work in a place that has more than 100 people. If the workplace mandates it. Forced if they want to go to a university. Forced.
And they were implementing in a totally unconstitutional way. They were going to, through OSHA, through workplace safety, like just the most blatantly unconstitutional proposal, that Joe Biden was going to make it the law of the land that every single business with 100 people or
Yeah.
more had to have everybody vaccinated. And it was only because of Donald Trump's Supreme Court that got struck down. And that's something that people who are paying attention remember. And so, like, okay, you can demonize Donald Trump all you want to, but how many millions of Americans were not fired from their job, did not lose their livelihood because they refused, or were not vaccine injured for a vaccine that they never needed to take? I mean, how many people fell into the category that, like me and you and so many other people fell into, where we got the thing and beat it real quickly before we ever got vaccinated, and then just didn't need it.
Right.
And then it just didn't make any sense. Even with the information we had about the vaccine back then, which we have a lot more now, but
Right.
even back then, I mean, you looked CNN's doctor right in the eyes, and he goes, well, are you going to get the vaccine? You go, no, I just beat COVID. Why would I need to? And he had no answer for you. He
No.
had no reason why. There's no compelling
They
reason why you
wanted me to
should.
join the team.
That's it.
That's all it is.
Yep.
They all, I mean, I had a very intelligent friend that I had a conversation with. You're going to get vaccinated now? I go, why would I do that? It was a weird conversation. I go, I beat it in 3 days. Like, I wasn't even that sick, man. Like, I made a video 3 days later explaining, and I got in trouble because I took the wrong medication to get better. Are you guys out of your fucking mind? Like, if you were really worried about people's health and safety, wouldn't you say, hey, what's this 57-year-old guy doing getting over this so easy? Like,
Right.
what's he doing different?
Oh,
What's he doing different?
And you go, oh, he's very serious about his health. Oh, he takes really good care of himself. By the way, you enjoyed me giving the business to Chris Cuomo over that. That was one
Bro,
of my
that
favorite
homeboy fell
moments
apart.
of this year.
He
that
fell
was a good
apart.
one.
He was trying to do CNN outside of CNN.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when he said, I've never said that. And then they pull up the clip like immediately of him demonizing.
Shout out to Patrick Bet David's crew, because they really had my back on that one.
Yes.
You know, it's not like I didn't send them that clip before
Right.
or anything,
Well,
but
that was an
they in
easy-
real time
Yeah.
had that ready to go.
They had a
And I
Jamie
was-
too.
Yeah, they had, everybody's got a Jamie now.
Not Jamie. There's only one Jamie.
There's
but-
only one Jamie, but there's a lot of knockoffs.
Yeah, a lot of knockoffs. But the fact that you checked him in real time and he just had to sit there and eat it, it's
Yeah.
just, they were puppets. They were puppets for the system. They were doing it because that was their job. That's how you get ahead in your career. You want to be the main guy at CNN, that's what you do. And
Right.
that's what they were doing. And now he's not doing it anymore. Good luck to him. I hope he does stay on an independent path and becomes an objective person. And he's made some strides towards that, I think. I think he's taken some fucking lumps, and I think you beat the fuck out of him in that debate. That debate was
my
Mike
God.
Tyson's early fights. So fucking, you see that fucking white dude with the muffin top who just gets flatlined in 15 seconds? That's what
Defense
that
sucks on
was.
this game.
I
though.
mean, look, man, and it's not really like a comment on me. It's not that I'm so amazing at debates. It's just like the argument here is
You're
so
pretty good
weak.
at debates. You're
Well,
pretty,
thank you.
pretty good at it.
I
You're pretty
appreciate
fucking
that.
good at it.
I'm not bad at it.
but also
but
you-
I'm just right
The
about this.
facts were on your side.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's my superpower isn't that I'm like the smartest guy or the best at debates. It's just that like I'm right in what I'm arguing, and that makes it much easier. You know, I got there was an organization that was pitching me on a debate, a 2-on-2 debate, which I don't really like doing 2-on-2 debates. I've done like I
Too
think
many people
one.
talking.
It's too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
One-on-one is the way to do it. But they pitched me this like months after that. I think it was, if I'm not wrong, I think the topic was about whether Joe Biden should drop out of the race or not. And they pitched me that it would be a 2-on-2 debate against two people. I don't remember who were saying he should stay in, and it was going to be me and Chris Cuomo against them. And I told them, I was like, no, I will not be on his side. And like, I don't, I'm kind of for,
Yeah.
we had our thing. I gave him a beating. I think he deserved it. But I'm just like, listen, man, I'll team up with like a left winger on something I agree with. I'll team up with a right winger on something I agree with. I'll team up with like a moderate on something I agree with. But no, not the corporate media guy who was the #1 show at CNN. Like, I'm not on their side. Even if I'm on their side on this issue, I'm against them. And I know that this has probably been a theme of like every single time I'm on this show over the last 10 years or whatever it's been. But I just... And maybe it's a problem myself.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. This month isn't just about eating all the turkey, mashed potatoes, and pumpkin pie you want. It's also about giving thanks for what you have and the people in your life. There's plenty to be thankful about this year, too. I'm thankful for my family, my dog, and all you listening to the shows. I wouldn't be the same without you guys, but more importantly, because this person probably gets overlooked every year. We should be thanking ourselves. Seriously, it seems like a simple thing, but it can be tough to remind yourself that you deserve a little recognition. If that's something you have trouble with, therapy is a great way to get some self-care. It teaches you the tools and the skills you need to treat yourself better. It's also a good way to work through frustration and an outlet for stress. You'd be surprised at how much talking can help. So give therapy a try and check out BetterHelp. They make it easy to connect with a therapist, and everything is entirely online. Once you fill out their short questionnaire, you'll be able to connect with a licensed therapist at a time and in a way that works best for you. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/JRE today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/JRE. This episode is brought to you by SimpliSafe. The holidays are coming up, and actually, SimpliSafe is already having a Black Friday sale. So, if you're worried about the safety of your home and family, now is the time to get home security. SimpliSafe can stop intruders before they break into your home. They're not an old-school system that only does something about it after someone is already inside. With SimpliSafe's Active Guard outdoor protection, they take home security to the next level. If someone is lurking around your home or acting suspicious, agents will see him in real time. They'll even talk to them directly, set off your spotlights, and call the police before anyone can break in. There's no long-term contracts, no cancellation fees, and it's around $1 a day for all this protection. So take advantage of their Black Friday sale. This week only, you can get 60% off any new system with a select professional monitoring plan. Head to simplysafe.com/Rogan to claim your discount and make sure your home is safe this season. Keep your home, your family, and your peace of mind protected with SimpliSafe. Again, go to simplysafe.com/Rogan. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
I hate them so much. And I really think they deserve it. And it's not just that they lie about everything. It's like they lie about everything, and then they have the nerve to morally judge us. Like, if you just watch even just the last few weeks of the Trump election, they're not in the business of reporting the news. They're totally just in the business of making you feel like you're a bad person if you don't fall in line with the regime.
Right.
And, it's like all of us know, right? Everybody knows this. America has this giant war machine, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
we're just always at war. We're the most
I know.
war-hungry
People
country in the
acting so
world.
dumb
Even
now.
if we're taking a
It's
little
like,
bit of a
what's
break from a
happening?
war, we'll fight 2 more proxy wars while we do that. America looks back at the 90s, Bill Clinton, as the time of peace and prosperity. We call it peace because we only fought a war in like Serbia and had a blockade around Iraq and were like bombing the crap out of Iraq with a few other military interventions in there too. The UN estimated that Bill Clinton's sanction and bombing regime of Iraq, okay, everyone just thinks of George H.W. Bush's war and W's war, but Bill Clinton was bombing Iraq his whole, and you had a full blockade around the country. The UN estimated that 500,000 children died of starvation or malnutrition due to the blockade. Now, I've heard people argue, by the way, that number is exaggerated. Maybe it wasn't 500,000. Maybe it was only
Let's say it's
100,000.
100,000.
So that's the time that we consider peace. When we were just starving 100,000 children to death in Iraq. And you, everybody in the corporate media, are in the business, every single one of those wars, you've sold them. Everyone, my entire life, the media has sold those wars. And you're gonna morally look down on me? You're gonna judge me? Motherfucker, you're in the business of baby murder. Get the fuck out of here. You're looking down, judging an American because maybe I'm gonna vote for Donald Trump, or maybe I dare to question the results of the last election. Fuck you, dude. And man, and it was a challenge debating him because they were playing the clips. You know, even before they played that clip that sunned him because he had said he didn't say that, and then he clearly did. They were just playing the clips of the way they were talking to people during COVID and the pandemic of the unvaccinated, and it's you, Mr. Vaccine Skeptic. You're the reason why this. And man, it was getting me angry. Like I was just like, all right, I gotta control this here because this is too like.
How sweet is it that he's on ivermectin now?
I mean, it's
how
like,
sweet is that, though? That is the nuttiest part of it all.
Could you
Is that
just
this
set
poor
someone
guy-
up for
not
a
only
better,
That,
like-
he wants to say long COVID. Like, hey, buddy, let me tell you something. If you got a novel medication injected into your body more than once, you probably had to do it twice. You probably at least had to get one booster. And you have some problem, and you're saying this long-term problem is COVID, long COVID. Are you sure? Are you sure? Or maybe that medicine they injected into your body, you got vaccine injured. You don't want to say that, though, because you still want some sort of a job in corporate media, so you have to toe the line. You should be very concerned that this novel, before, never mass injected into people. Who knows how many different people are going to have different results from some medication, some terrible fucking weird way their biology
No.
interacts with this medication. It's
Play
going
the
to cause
blind. What are
horrible
y'all doing?
side effect. And now you're on ivermectin to treat that. That's rich.
And the way he tried to spin it, that
It's for long
he
COVID.
wasn't, but he tried to say, because I mean he was so,
This is
he
so
really should have
ridiculous.
just thrown in the white towel. He would have done much better for himself
Saying
in
I
that
was
debate
wrong.
if he goes,
Yeah.
listen, I was at CNN. And I kind of just took for granted that they have the best experts, and so
Yes.
I trusted their experts. And now I realize they were. If he had said that, that would have been very hard.
Yes.
I still would have been harsh on him, but it would have been a different conversation and a
Yes.
different dynamic.
Look at that.
What he did was he refused to admit that, and then
That
and this
doesn't
is
go to the
really
right
what got me
people.
is that then he started kind of like attacking my motives.
Look at that.
Like he was
Where
like,
is that-
"Oh
what's
yeah," no,
happening?
he goes, "I know that this is probably good for your podcast numbers and stuff, but blah, like as if I don't really believe what I'm saying.
Well, because
I'm just
that's
doing this to make
how
money."
They function.
Right.
That's why they're accusing you of functioning that way. They're accusing you of doing things
Yeah,
just because you know
that's
they're going to be
that's
outrageous
weird,
and get a lot
like,
of
yeah.
views.
Which is,
That's
but
like a
you know,
little
like you know me,
sense.
I don't do that.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
No,
I
I
have
know
the
you
number one
don't. I know you
podcast in
don't.
the world, and I don't do anything based on how many views I think it's going to get. That's a fact.
Yeah, and you don't like. There is nothing I say that I don't believe.
Look
I
at
might
that.
be wrong
How
about
is
some
getting
stuff,
from
but
now?
everything I
Doesn't
say
really
I
make any
believe. I'm not like
sense.
ever saying anything to just like,
Exactly.
oh, this
Of course.
will, like bring in bigger numbers or something
course.
like that.
They think that way. That's why he's accusing you of that.
Yeah,
Because like
that's right.
that's a motivation for people that are in that industry. If you're in the fucking industry of being a mouthpiece for network news, like there's a very narrow window of behavior that you have to operate under. You have to stay inside these lines, and whatever, if you're on Fox or if you're on CBC, NBC or whatever it is, MSNBC,
Mm-hmm.
anyone, you have a narrative. They have a narrative in the office. There's a culture. There's a way
100%.
people think about that, and this is your job. So you're going to do the things that you think are going to get you more ratings. You're going to do the stories that are going to get people more outraged. That's how you're thinking. It's
Yeah.
the wrong way to think when you're on the internet.
And they also have there's a real incentive to never consider like what I said about them being in the baby murder business, because that's that's pretty rough to
Right.
think of yourself as that. And, I remember this one time I watched a documentary on abortion, and it was like a very pro-choice.
How much free time do you have?
This was before I had kids. This was before I had kids. I had so much free time before I had kids.
If I'm going to
But-
unwind in front of the TV, that's the last thing I'm going to watch.
I'm a weird guy, Joe. But anyway, that's what I do.
I might, though.
But well, it
the right
I forget
mood.
where it was. It might have been on
I
Netflix
really
or
want
something.
to know what was going on.
Well, I was kind of interested in the subject, and was before I had kids. But I remember I was watching. It had a very pro-choice bent, and there was this abortionist, this abortion doctor, this lady, and she was like, listen, I've been an abortion doctor for 30 years, and let me just tell you something. There is no moral issue with having an abortion. It's a thing in a petri dish. It's not a human being. But I remember just watching it and being like, well, yeah, but like you better feel that way.
Right.
Because if you even start to entertain the possibility that, what does that make you?
Right.
So there's this very powerful social incentive for them to like dig their heels in and not admit that like, oh, the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world with more freedom and prosperity and cultivated the greatest economy and the greatest, music and literature and just everything that is this superpower. Oh, we presided over the bankruptcy, destruction, and like the devolving into nothing more than a like military industrial complex, big bank, big pharmaceutical, most corrupt nation on earth. And we didn't cover that. We watched all of that happen, and not only did we not cover it, we demonized anybody who covered it. And we were at every, that's very difficult to ever confront. And it's always just so much easier for human beings to just go, nope, the problem is misinformation and Russia and racism.
They were saying that the number one thing for women was abortion. That was the narrative that was being expressed over and over again. It was the number one issue for them, the number one concern.
What was the only political winner they had?
Did you see what Kurt Metzger tweeted?
No. No, but I want to.
Hold on, give me a second. He's the man. Kurt is the fucking best when things are flying and everything gets crazy. I'm gonna send this to you, Jamie. Oh my god, he's so funny.
He is one of the funniest human beings on the planet,
He's so
for
funny.
sure.
He's a mess in the green room. It's just like,
Oh, I
he's just
know.
like, he got me down rabbit hole after rabbit. You didn't hear about this? And he's like, more conspiracies. I'm like, Kurt, I'm trying to like enjoy this experience of being at the comedy club and Donald Trump's about the way you're hitting me with conspiracy after conspiracy after
Yeah,
conspiracy. I'm like,
listen, you get caught on the side of the bar at Mitzi's with Kurt Metzger, you might be in for a night.
And he's looming, and he's big. He's a big giant guy. Christina Applegate, right? Why? Give me your reasons why. My child is sobbing because her rights as a woman may be taken away. Why? And if you disagree, please unfollow me. Kurt says, good news. If she got all her COVID shots, she's probably sterile now anyway. Also, what the fuck is a woman? Also, could you imagine a child? Imagine a child, and your child is sobbing because their right to kill a baby inside of them might be taken away. I don't believe that's true.
It's very hard.
I don't believe that's true unless you've distorted what we're talking about to that child and said that someone's going to tell that child what they can and can't do with their body, like in some sort of a weird dystopian way. Like, what did you say to that kid? Do you explain what an abortion is? Do you explain how they came about? They were in your body, and then they came out. Now they're a little tiny person that's like super vulnerable, and you want to protect their right to kill a little tiny person inside of them. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to do it, and I'm not a woman. I should not have the choice of what a woman can and can't do with her body. I would not want a man, if I was a woman, to tell me what the fuck I can do with my body. And I think if somehow, and I think it's all connected to religion, and if somehow or another someone decided, and this would be a very minor comparison and not nearly as consequential, but if someone decided that men could no longer get vasectomies, if men could no longer get vasectomies because of religious reasons, because of some Sharia law or whatever the fuck it is, you cannot do that. Men would be outraged. If women were forcing it on men, we have low population, you cannot get vasectomies. Like, what? We'd be like, what the fuck is going on? And I want to go to Oklahoma to get a vasectomy because it's legal there. And then they track you. Were you in Oklahoma to get a vasectomy? Like, what? What the fuck? Men would be outraged. That's happening with abortion. There's talk of doing that with abortion, where in states where it's illegal, women are not going to be allowed to travel in the United States of America, where you're supposed to have freedom, to go to a place where you're going to have a legal medical procedure. It's legal in that place, whether you agree with it or not. If you're going to believe in states' rights and you don't think that this is a giant prison where you have to show your ID when you go into Arizona, you should be able to drive around, right? That's the whole idea of one country. You can go wherever the fuck you want to go.
Right.
It's
This
not
is the
your
best.
business. There's other things to worry about. Worry about these fucking gangs that are taking over apartment buildings. Worry about the border. Worry about South Central Los Angeles. Worry about the South Side of Chicago and fucking gang violence that kills more people than half the wars we have going on right now. worry about important shit. Don't worry about what a guy wants to do to get a vasectomy, or what,
Yeah.
way worse, a woman wants to do if she's trying to get an abortion.
Well,
It's
look-
not your fucking business.
I think that if the argument is that abortion is killing a baby, which, like, there is an argument to, then I can understand the argument being, hey, that shouldn't be allowed. Now, obviously, I do think there are situations where it's pretty indefensible to force a woman to carry a baby to term.
Yes.
You know, but
It could
there-
risk her life. There's a lot of rape, incest.
also major health
Health,
issues.
yes.
I mean, there are these situations where you find out that there is some, you know, congenital disease where this kid is not going to
Right,
make it to 3
right.
years old. And I would never dream of, like, forcing, you know what I mean, that decision on parents rather than allowing them to make it. There is also a different, the vast majority of abortions are not that, you know, and the vast majority of abortions are essentially people just don't want to have kids right now, and that's that's much tougher to defend than those cases. But I will say that one of the things that always, like, I find striking to me is that, because I'm like a radical libertarian, and it's very interesting to me that, like, progressive Democrats all of a sudden become radical libertarians, but only on one issue. And they make literally exactly, I'm not even saying the libertarian position is to be pro-choice. There's libertarians who are pro-life and libertarians who are pro-choice. But the argument they make is a libertarian one. They're like, listen, I own my body. It's my body. It's my choice. The government shouldn't be involved in healthcare decisions. We believe in freedom. This is a basic fundamental right. It's a very libertarian argument.
Yes.
And it's just interesting that you only apply that to this one area. There's not any other area where any progressive Democrat would ever go, you know, if we're talking about Obamacare, or we're talking about regulation, or we're talking about taxes, they would never go, hey, listen, this is my money. This is my body. This is my choice. The government shouldn't be involved in that. You know what I'm saying? And, like,
Yes.
there is something that's very bizarre
Very
about
good
that.
point.
Where it's kind of like, maybe with immigration, they kind of try to use that an argument to, like, oh, you shouldn't stop a person, freedom of movement type thing. They don't really do that anymore because it's been such a disaster.
Right.
But it's just very strange to me that it's like, oh, what, you all become radical libertarians, like,
Yeah.
only when it comes to this thing, which is kind of murdering a baby?
But then there's the other side that says we're going to leave it up to the states. Okay. Well, if you get rid of Roe v. Wade and you leave it up to the states, if someone wants to go to another state where it is legal and you want to stop them from doing that or prosecute them when they come back to your state,
That seems to be a problem.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because then it's like
You can't prosecute me for gambling in Vegas.
Right.
Because
you
I come
own that
back.
person's
Yeah.
body. What if
Yeah.
that person decides to get an apartment in Oklahoma
Right.
and now they kind of live there sometimes? What are you going
Or
to
just,
do?
it
Who-
also, it seems...
is it where their driver's license is? Like, what is that?
It also just seems, I don't even know what the word, it seems like incoherent or unsustainable to say that if you're not breaking a law in the area where you are, that you could then be held responsible for
Exactly.
that when you come back to it. Because again, like, it's, you know, you go
Right.
to a state where recreational marijuana is legal or where gambling's legal or
Right.
whatever. You know, the idea that it's like if there's, like, the speed limit was 80 miles per hour in the town over, and then I come back and I get a speeding ticket
Right.
for driving too fast over there, where you're allowed to do that. So that seems
Exactly.
unworkable.
It's a great. That's
to
a great
me.
analogy.
Yeah,
that's a
it's
great analogy. It's men too. It's men controlling women's bodies. That's the thing of it that freaks people out, and it's a step in the wrong direction. If you got rid of Roe v. Wade, and that's what you did, so now people have to go to a place where it's legal. If you're stuck in a state, you don't have the resources, but you are pregnant and you want to make a decision for your own body, that's not up to men to decide. If you really believe in states' rights and you really believe the United States is one cohesive community, you should be able to travel to do whatever the fuck you want. You want to get your dick tattooed? You want whatever you want to get. You want to get forehead implants so you look like a unicorn? Whatever the fuck you want to do. If you want to travel to go do that, including if you want to do something that's legal, it's a medical procedure that maybe that I frown upon. But if they decided in that state that it's legal, you should be able to do it there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reasonable compromise for right now is Roe v. Wade was struck down. It's a states' rights issue. But yes, I agree with you. The tracking of what you do in another state where it is legal in that state, that first of all, it just seems unworkable to me. I don't see how
Right.
that's possibly going to happen. And then I do feel like that's going to have to go back to the Supreme Court anyway, because it's such a precedent that you could be prosecuted for doing something that was legal in the area that you did it.
It's creepy. It's creepy, and it's an infringement on rights. I don't like it. Even if I don't like even if I wasn't a pro-choice person, if I didn't like the idea of abortion, I like less the idea of the government telling you what the fuck you can do and whether or not they can discover what you did in some other state. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that, and that's what I think a lot of women are fearful of, and a lot of that, I don't know how much of a push there is to make something like that happen. We tried to find that about Texas the other day. There was one case, but we just kept talking. What was that one case, Jamie? There was something in Texas where someone maybe traveled to get an abortion, because in Texas it's 6 weeks, which is kind of crazy. Like, you don't have any time. You barely have enough time to realize you're pregnant for a lot of women.
You're probably not even going to test positive on a home pregnancy test, I think, for like 28 days or something like that. So you got 2 weeks,
You got
essentially,
2 weeks. Yeah.
After that.
To find out, make a decision, do what you got to do, and then you have to make sure you get in under the wire or you can get prosecuted. Like 7 weeks you're in jail.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Look, it's very, I don't know, it's tough. When you're drawing a line, it's very tough. It's very tough to find a line other than conception that's not arbitrary.
Right. Bill Burr had the best bit. His bit about was fantastic.
Oh,
He
yeah,
goes,
yeah,
I
I
believe in
remember,
woman's right to choose, but I think you're killing a baby.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus Christ, he's dead on.
Yeah.
He's dead on.
Yeah, Louis C.K. had a great one, too. I can't remember that. It was an old Louis bit. He had a great abortion bit, too.
It's a thing that I always say, that if men can get pregnant, abortion be an app on your phone. You'd be able to get a fucking abortion at the gas station. You'd be like, fill it up and take this out. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, fuck that girl. I'm not carrying her baby.
But she
I
was,
think this is the case, and it's a little confusing.
Okay. A Texas woman who was jailed and charged with murder after self-managing an abortion, what does that mean, can move forward with a lawsuit against the local sheriff and prosecutors over the case that drew national outrage before the charges were quickly dropped. A federal judge ruled on Wednesday. So U.S. District Judge Drew B. Tipton denied a motion by prosecutors and the sheriff to dismiss the lawsuit during a hearing in the border city of McAllen. Lizelle Gonzalez, who spent 2 nights in jail on the murder charges, is seeking $1 million in damages in the lawsuit, did not attend the hearing. Texas, one of the nation's most restrictive abortion bans, and outlaws the procedure with limited exceptions under Texas law. Women seeking an abortion are exempt from criminal charges, however. So why did they charge her? What did she do?
what is self-managing
Yeah, what does
an
that
abortion?
mean? What does that mean? Oh, she took a drug. So Gonzalez was indicted in 2022 after she took the drug misoprostol while 19 weeks pregnant. She was treated at Texas hospital, where doctors later performed a cesarean section to deliver a stillborn child after they detected no fetal heartbeat. This is a little different.
19 weeks is pretty late, too.
Yeah, this is different. The charges were dropped just days after the woman's arrest. Okay, this is different. This is not someone going to another state. So I think that is probably J.D. Vance said he hadn't heard of that before, and he certainly wouldn't want to put those kind of restrictions on people ever. But when you leave it up to the states, if you're stuck in one of those states, that's where women get really freaked out that Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Yeah, well, look, it's not, none of these things are perfect compromises, and so even, one of the things that's interesting is, like, for so long conservatives wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade, and it always seemed like a pipe dream, like it was never going to actually happen. But then, when you do overturn Roe v. Wade, you do realize that it's like, nobody's really happy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's like, the blue states are still going to have, like,
Yeah.
unrestrictive, rules about it. So the
Yeah.
the right-wing people aren't happy, and then the red states are going to be more restrictive. So the left-wingers aren't happy about it. It is, it's one of those issues that is enormously complex, and it's very difficult. I'm not sure there is like a legal solution to it. I think it's a much more of a cultural issue. It's like if you were living in a society where, say, it was more similar to my grandfather's society, where it was very normal that you married your high school sweetheart. It was very normal that people waited till marriage to have sex, and it was very typical that you got married at
That's what
19
they
or 20.
said.
Well, look, I'm not saying they did, but I just mean it was much more typical
Yeah.
to get married at 19 and be
Sure.
married for 60 years or whatever. It's much easier to have rules about abortion in that society.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like if you're in like a hookup culture world where most people are not, people are getting married at like 35 if they get married at all,
Right.
and they're spending from like 17 to 35 being with many different partners.
Using apps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just going to come in and just write a law on top of that. It's just a very difficult situation. But to your initial point, it's like the Dems were running on that because that was really the only political winner that they had. That was the only issue that people actually really cared about, and they were on the Democrat side about it. And that's why they had to run on that. That's why Kamala Harris, which was one of the craziest things of this whole campaign, one of the most amazing things, is that they actually tried to just run on nothing.
One of my favorites was that Tim Walz tried to claim that his wife got pregnant through in vitro fertilization, and she said that's not true. So he lied about that.
What a weird guy he was.
His wife had to come out and say he was lying.
Yeah. Well, so something. Okay.
That guy lied about everything. He lied about being a head coach. He was an assistant coach. Lied about his military rank. Lied about whether or not he served in a war. Lied about whether or not he was in Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
He fucking lies about everything.
Well, see, what happened is, right? So Obama, who was obviously a very, very smart guy and incredibly talented politician, at least while he was running for president, he was. I think he's lost a step, but so Obama still was a bit of a narcissist, and he wanted to pick Joe Biden as his VP. He didn't want someone who was going to outshine him, and so he picked Joe Biden, who, even before he went senile, was never particularly bright. So he picked Joe Biden as his VP. And then Joe Biden, well, he wanted some diversity points, and he also wanted someone to not outshine him, because now he was becoming senile, and he was never that bright to begin with, so he picks Kamala Harris to be his VP. And then Kamala Harris needs to pick someone who won't outshine her. You know what I mean? So it's like the idiocracy just like spun out of control real quick, where all of a sudden you get to like the third VP in a row, and you're like, yo, really? This is who you picked? Like,
He's a knucklehead.
you know what's crazy is that this was in many ways this presidential election was just so wild and so different from anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. I'm 41, and this was different than any other presidential election of my lifetime for sure, and I think substantially before
anybody's
that.
lifetime.
Yeah, I think before that
Yeah.
too. But then there were these things that were also just like very conventional explanations for why you look at this Trump blowout, and it's almost like as you look back at it, it's like, yeah, what, you guys thought you could get away with it? It's just very basic things that, like, Donald Trump picked a VP who, whether you like him or not, is a pretty impressive guy.
Very impressive.
Pretty impressive guy. There's a guy who was raised by a single parent who was a drug addict and ended up serving the country, going to an Ivy League school, becoming a venture capitalist, becoming a senator, and can sit and have a conversation with you for 3 hours and be very intelligent and expressive. Like,
and have fun.
and
He
yes,
had fun.
However you feel about him, objectively,
Yeah.
an impressive person.
Yes.
He picked a VP that could help him.
Right.
He could do things that Trump can't do.
Right.
Like he could go on a show
CNN
and really make the case pretty
Yes.
well in a hostile environment. He's got a
Right.
very high verbal IQ, clearly. He's a very intelligent guy. She picked a VP who can't do anything to help her. Who's like the weirdest human being you've ever seen. Like what was the strategy here, guys? And they really just banked on being not Trump. They go, all of the things that she ran on 4 years ago, she walked away from every position and didn't have an answer for any of them. Didn't have an answer for why. Like, it's totally fine to change your mind on
Sure.
something. And it's
You
totally...
should have a reason.
Yeah, I mean, and it's very easy. We've
Yeah.
all changed our minds on a
Sure.
lot of things. And if you were like, hey, dude, you used to believe this, but you believe this now, you'd be
Yeah.
like, well, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I read this guy, and he just made such a good argument about it.
Yeah.
And then he had all this data that I hadn't really seen before. That's fine. But she never had an answer for
Right.
any of them. She went, my values haven't changed. What? Well, okay. So, but again, what's the answer then? Like, you were for Medicare for all, now you're not. You were for open borders, now you're not. You were for whatever, a bunch of other stuff, trans surgeries for prisoners or whatever. Now you're not. What happened? She had no answer for that. She's also the sitting VP, and they go, "Oh, so are you running on the track record of the last 4 years?" Like, no. I'm also not going to run on that. What? Well, why not? Because I'm not Joe Biden. Like, it's like, what? What? That's what you're running on? That's it?
Yeah.
And it's just like, it was
But
so
meanwhile,
unbelievable.
so many people were behind her, which is even wilder. It's wild that so many people were like, yeah, this is what we got, so let's just fucking gaslight the shit out of half the country and run with it.
And also
Let's
the
see how
fact,
far we can take. I gotta piss. Let's
Yeah.
come back. We'll talk about this. I've been
Sure,
holding.
sure.
I did the sauna earlier. Sorry.
No,
It did an hour? He's an old dude, man. Old dudes with bad posture are different than old dudes with regular posture.
that's a very good
Once
point.
they get to like this,
Yeah, that's it.
it's
Yeah.
not a lot. They can get, it's hard to keep your head up.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? After a while, gravity just wins. Yeah. But Trump keeps on trucking. He's the only guy that went 4 years in the White House and didn't get older.
He looks something really interesting
Pretty
about
the
that.
same. Pretty the same 4 years later, where everybody else looks like they've been near a nuclear blast.
You know what
Without radiation poisoning.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. I've always thought there was something about like, because just from doing stand up, if you think about like if you really try to remember back to like your first like few months in stand up comedy, and you remember like how daunting getting up in front of people was.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a thing, and
Yeah.
that's the first step to being a stand up comedian. Isn't like getting great material or even being it's like, hey, get comfortable with going up in front of a group of people and speaking into a microphone to them.
Yep.
Get comfortable with not getting a laugh when you wanted to get one. Get comfortable with that. And there is something where like in 2016, and people forget about this human element of it, right? Like Jeb Bush, okay, he's the son of a president, he's the brother of a president, and he was the governor of Florida. It's not like he was a rookie. But when he's on that debate stage, he is stepping onto the biggest stage of his life. He's never been in front of a crowd like that before. Donald Trump, it's Tuesday.
Right.
It's like, this is what I do. Donald Trump's like cracking his neck and going out there like, oh, are all the spotlights and cameras on me? That's about right. Okay, like it's just like and he was so comfortable. That was a huge factor in why he was able to just nuke everybody.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, this is what I do. I'm the center of attention.
Yeah.
These guys have never been there before.
No,
Not
he,
like
had
that.
he was funny when he was talking about the one-liner that he cracked about Rosie O'Donnell. He goes, "Thank God I had that one because she was coming after me. She was coming after me. I had that one. I got her with that one."
Well, he won her over.
He did. Look at her. Speaking for him. Apparently she crushed it and
Yeah, she
made
did.
fun of Mark Cuban.
Yeah, she did. She did. It was great. Yeah, I watched it. She's
Can we watch it? I haven't seen
She's
it.
very sharp. Megyn Kelly's
she's
very
sharp as a tack.
impressive.
She was the original Fox Fembot. She was
Yeah.
the original like super hot woman on Fox who was so much smarter than you, and you're like,
Smarter and
Ice Queen.
they're all wearing something very inappropriate.
Oh, yeah, I
Like,
said vagina curtains. I used
I
to have a
know, I
bit
love
about
that
it. Which is like not even a good curtain. Like the kind that grandma has over the kitchen sink that flutters in the breeze goes by. Like, Jesus Christ, you're inches away from vagina that's covered by the thinnest piece of cloth. It's a wild way to dress.
It's a weird culture over there at
It's
Fox.
amazing. Let's hear it.
4 years ago, we had Mark Cuban on the program. Yeah. May have seen he was in the news this week. And he started going on about how bad America's race history was and how ashamed he was of America, and that's why he was at all these protests, and he felt it was really important to stand up and speak out about human rights violations. And then it got awkward when I asked him about all the money he was taking from China. And then he dropped a bunch of F-bombs, and I thought, I really enjoy this feeling of proving Mark Cuban wrong. And so here I am at a Trump rally, a strong, intelligent woman